listening to the GeekCast Radio Network.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 75th episode of GeekCast Radio, the main flagship podcast here on the GeekCast Radio Network, going strong since 2009. We are 5 years old this year. I am one of your hosts, TFG1Mike. Joining me is Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
OptimusSolo. Hello.
Hello.
And MovieRevolt Dan. Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
You're not Michael Wilson.
No, yeah, you're not Michael Wilson. Take that back.
I didn't know that saying was trademarked. I will.
He goes, "Hey, how's it going?"
How dare you use a general hello?
Right. All right, so this is our return to the year-end podcasts. We took 2013 off because, honestly, the dates did not work out last year. It's so weird.
We didn't do this last year?
No, we were supposed to do one, and what happened was we were going to do something else, and it never took.
We were going to do a Christmas party last year. Somehow that didn't work out, and the 23rd and 30th were falling on a Monday, which Christmas fell on a Wednesday, so no one could. Everybody had plans. Everybody was out of town or traveling or whatever, so. Yeah, last year we didn't do it. We've done it 2010, 2011, 2012, and this year. So.
Well, my apologies to everybody. A year late.
Yeah. What was your biggest personal highlight of 2014, Kev?
Wow. Personal highlight. That's personal. Probably meeting my current girlfriend. We'll go with that as a personal highlight. And let's see, we're at 8 months now, so
awesome.
That would be the biggest personal event in my life so far this year. Outside of that, I guess winning a bunch of work awards, but that really doesn't mean nearly as much as a significant other. So we actually just yesterday set the all-time sales record for my store for a year. So
nice.
Awesome.
Yep. So, but yeah,
just girlfriend. Make sure Vinny doesn't eat everything.
Girlfriend trumps that, though.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? What was your personal highlight from 2014?
Oh, wow, there's so many running through my head. Not really. Wow. Geez. Pretty good promotion at work. Started a podcast that's going pretty well, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of a normal year for me, honestly.
What about you, Steve?
Do you want me to be sarcastic?
I want you to be honest, and then you can be sarcastic.
I closed off one of my podcasts.
Two, actually.
Yeah, that's true. One of them that dated back to before the network was founded.
Yep.
And the funny one now. I knocked up my wife a second time.
So elegantly put.
I was just going to say the same thing.
That's why it was sarcastic. So we discovered I am having another mini-me.
So you have a Batman and a Robin.
I'm not sure which one's going to be which yet.
Make one of them Nightwing, it'll be better.
Gotta figure out the personality first.
Yeah. For me, personal highlights, probably... It's probably going to be all the interviews I do. Honestly, being able to talk to half the people I've talked to this year and all the years that we've been doing the network at this point. But that's really when I'm having. I mean, I have a lot of fun on the network in general, but like to sit there and listen to John Semper Jr. talk about the history and what it was like when Spider-Man 1994 was going on. That was just an amazing, amazing interview. And we'll talk about all the interviews here in a little while. But other personal highlights, not much. That's really been going on. I'm happy to report that I've had another successful year reviewing stuff for the Hololand Records. I actually interviewed Matt and Michael this year, so that was cool. So I think that's about it. Steve, shall we get into all of the things we have to get into then?
I just want to say I wear my sunglasses at night, but yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That was my other personal highlight.
Cue Corey Hart right here.
I do that on purpose to irritate you and bring up bad references.
It would not be a year-end show without irritating Mike.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Don't make me break out that mac and cheese.
Where's that fourth wall when you need it?
Uh-huh. All right, so interviews this year. I don't know if this is a record or not. I know in previous years we've broken records, but this year in total we have had 19 different interviews posted. From from February all the way up to this month in December. In February, there were 2 interviews. I talked with the Dynamic Music Partners, which is Lolita Romanis, Michael McQuistion, and Christopher Carter. They are mainly from, they do composing with, or they used to do composing with Shirley Walker. They're 3 of her original team members for the DC Animated Universe. They are currently doing the music on Marvel's Avengers Assemble. That was a really cool interview. Mad Mel Madigan was also in that month in February. She is a cosplayer who dresses up as a whole bunch of different characters. That was really fun to talk to her about all the characters she's dressed up as. In March, we had... March was pretty much Transformers month. We had Stan Bush because his new album, The Ultimate, came out. We had Starscream's daughter, Abby Collins Cluster, and that was really interesting. Everybody go back and check that one out because you hear a lot about what it was like growing up being Chris Latta's daughter, and just she's told us a lot of stories about what he was like when he was still with us. And then Michael Wilson and I chatted with Jim Sorensen and Bill Forster, who are behind the Transformers Legacy IDW hardcover packaging art book. Basically, anyone that loved Transformers G1, you want this book, because it's basically a almost complete history of Generation 1, Generation 2 toy packaging. It is a very, very awesome book. In April, we had 3 interviews in April. TV's Mr. Neil and I over on Pixels and the Animation talked with Gary Chalk. This is Gary's second time we've interviewed him, I think. Yeah, second time we've interviewed Gary. So that was pretty fun, talking to him about his video game characters. I chatted with Joe Sanfilippo, who is a podcaster and host over at AfterBuzzTV.com. He also does voice acting. If anyone... Not that I'm expecting any of us here, other than me. If anyone has ever watched any of the Mattel Ever After High cartoon series, he does one of the narrators in that. Steve and I, for Legends of the Dark Knight, talked with Dr. Andrea Letamendi and Brian Ward about their podcast on Batman the Animated Series specifically. So we talked about them, about the Arkham Sessions, their show. We talked to Neil S. Bulk, who is an album producer. We chatted with the Turtle editor at IDW Publishing, Bobby Kernow. Brian Ward came back and talked about Transformers Animated, the complete series. TV's Mr. Neil and I chatted with Matt Hill, who is the voice of Captain N. He was also the suit actor for Raphael in TMNT 3 and The Next Mutation. Dan, you want to talk about your first interview with Charm City Games?
Yeah, we talked to Matt Voss from Charged to Be Games, which he has a couple board games, one a card game. I apologize for called Cockfight, and another one called Runecast that was coming out. We kind of discussed that, his Kickstarter campaign, and how that all went. We also talked with Bryce Carlson from Boom Studios. He is also the writer of Hit. He's a executive editor there, and we talked about his comic, noir comic Hit, which actually is quite a great read. And we also have another interview. We had another interview with Wayward Studios, which is an online virtual comic book company that they have a number of different stories there. And we actually have an interview coming out next week too with Game Companion. It's a short film that's been released throughout the theater circuit and festival circuit, and we talked to 3 of the actors from that, which will be coming out not this week but the last week of the year. So
awesome. So the last 3 that I did this year was John Takis, who is another album producer. We talked with Joe Clark, who is the composer for the Cowell Sessions. And as I already mentioned, John Semper Jr., the head writer for Spider-Man the Animated Series. Thank you to everybody who took the time to sit down and talk with us for interviews. It's always amazing to me, who we get and sometimes how long we actually talk to them for. I also did a pull bag Origins episode kind of thing with Margaret Scott and Jason Enright, so that was pretty cool talking to them. But again, thank you to everybody for the interviews. We will be bringing you more interviews next year as well. All right, Steve, let's get to the technical side of stuff.
Okay.
Well, this is your area of expertise.
I know.
So
yeah, there's been quite a few new things to the site this year. There's been the fact that it's been revamped completely. All new imagery, all new design, a lot new functionality pieces. So there's that. We've got a lot more structured as far as the main page content is concerned with the reviews and with the podcasts and the syndicated content and our regular content schedule. So that's kind of all grown with the year 5 features. We've also gotten into some of the some more syndication of other podcasts, which we'll mention later on in the record, as well as a donate feature, which again we can get into later. We're currently doing the second GCRN Wars tournament, which is the video game icons, which is almost over. Pretty close to being done, actually. And then the second annual GCRN Awards will be starting soon, which again we'll get into later. So there's all that. We've accomplished quite a few interviews. We've gotten a lot of new shows off the ground. We've closed off a lot of shows. What are some of the ones that have closed off, Mike?
Let's see. Shutting down production and completing their runs this year, we've had All Things Transformers, which is the longest running podcast on and before the network was launched, because that was Steve's first show. We started in 2007?
8.
2008?
I always get the year wrong.
Well, Anyway, let's see. We brought the Batman show, Legends of the Dark Knight, to an end for now, but it's pretty much ended at this point. We may or may not bring it back in future years. Mass Mayhem, I brought Tim Silvers in to finish that show out, and it was sadly anticlimactic. I'm sorry, that is the worst cartoon series of the 80s. Jason the Wheeled Warriors is even better than that. What else closed down this year? Yeah, that's true. Beyond the Night, we finished that out. We still kind of have to do the 50th episode, but it's pretty much done at episode 49. That was my Knight Rider show with Dion, the Music Man, so that was pretty cool. Let's see.
Season 1 of the telecast.
Well, no.
Yeah, that's
he's
true.
asking more so for.
Well, I mean,
stuff.
that's still
something that ended.
It's something that ended, but the show is still
must go on.
Yeah, the show must go on. So I mean, it's not like we closed off the podcast entirely, unless you have, Kev. I don't know. Let's see. From the Command Center has kind of trickled on. It is going to make a return next year to kind of finish it off. We just, between myself, Spada, and Scotty, we just ran into a whole bunch of life issues, and we just couldn't find the time to record. But it will be finished next year, since next year is the 20th anniversary of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers film. God, I'm old.
I think
what
that's
else?
it.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, we had 5 different shows closing off this year, so I think that's pretty much it.
And then the only new ones this year, I believe, were...
Talking in Circles.
I believe that started the year before, didn't it, Dan?
No, it started January 21st of this year.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was mistaken then by very little. I knew it was close to starting last year. I couldn't remember if it was actually this year or not.
Yeah, it was right near the cusp of the beginning of this year.
Altered Geeks had kind of a revamp earlier this year. It's kind of got a new-ish theme to it. I hope to actually get back to the video portion of it soon, but time will tell. I believe Toon Beyond came back for a short bit this year, and
it will be continuing on into next year.
We spun off MWire Weekly into Weekend of the Movies, which I'm unsure of the status of that.
And the silence was deafening.
Yeah, there's been many versions of that show, and right now it's more of a hassle as far as trying to get co-hosts that have seen the movies and work out schedules and whatnot. But hopefully there will be some form of movie talk moving on into 2015.
Yes. And then GCRN Wars has made kind of a comeback this year.
Probably not probably, it is the year that has seen the most Wars episodes out of all the years of the network.
Oh yeah. Considering we used to do 1 episode per year, yeah, this is the most.
I don't know what the number is, but we probably did almost between 6 and 8 episodes this year.
I will say that we've done
maybe 10 with the actual tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've done episodes 12 through Yep. So we'll have done almost 10.
Yeah.
So not too bad. Had a decent variety too. Ninjas vs. Pirates, the original series of Trek vs. TNG, PlayStation vs. Xbox, and then of course the tournament, which has been kind of interesting. And by the time this airs, people will be beating their microphones, headsets, whatever. Because I'm the only one that knows what's going on.
I'll still be angry that Kirby and Mario aren't in the finals.
Yeah, it's about to get a hell of a lot worse. I'm sorry to say for some people, but so yeah,
that
there's
cheating
that
duo.
There were plans for a top 100 this year. It's just time didn't allow. It will come. It will be out 2015.
Yeah, these bigger projects, folks, take us
a while,
and plus we have to schedule it properly to who wants to be on it.
Well, there's a lot of planning to do it right.
Right. Well, yeah, no, I'm not undercutting that. I'm just saying that yes, you're right. A lot of planning does go into it, and we also have to, when we get to the point of actually doing the recordings, we have to figure out, who's going to be available to be on the episode, who wants to be on the episode, this, that, and the other thing, and everything else. And I personally like it that we do the top 100s every 2 years at this point, because we had one in 2011, we had one in 2013. I mean, every 2 years, I like that space.
Well, we don't want to mess with anything that you like.
Shut the hell up.
It just happened, happy accident. We'll just leave it at that. Give or take. So yes, I did manage to get some type of statistic program installed through the podcatcher stuff that kind of builds everything on its own through the site. I installed it probably the last few days of July. We have seen as far as this is concerned, it's a complete history, but it's not. Of almost 44,000 downloads since like the last couple days of July, podcast-wise.
That's a couple.
Interesting.
Yes, with a sum of unique downloads, which would be 32,996, which basically means some people were downloading twice or streaming or something from the same IP address. Because this is streamed through Stitcher, it is on iTunes, it is on the website. So there are a multitude of locations to listen. Surprisingly, because I kind of took the top 15 episodes since July of not only unique and total downloads. From the Command Center, 45 for some reason is number one.
I'm trying to think what 45 was.
I couldn't tell you, but and then there were a few ATTFs, which I think the only reason those were even up as high as they are is because of what they covered, because it was the end of the show. And we were actually doing top lists, and we were actually kind of breaking down stuff instead of doing the news.
Yeah, apparently all the Transformers fans came out of hiding.
I assume so, because I've never seen the numbers like that on that show.
I don't know why FTCC 45 is as high as it is. It is the Tommy episode, the 2-part commentary for White Light when he becomes the White Ranger. So that's why it's that high up.
Yeah, and then there's the
Teamcast
interview.
Beyond in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah, animation direction. We had that new spotlight this year, and
Yep, there were 3 of those in there. There were a couple Legends of the Dark Knight, a couple MWire Weekly. Actually, it was the same episode, which I copied twice.
I was trying to figure out which one that is, and I couldn't figure it out based on the numbering, but it might have been the Guardians of the Galaxy episode, because it's the date is lining up with that. So
It very well may be. I can't remember. The final episode of Legends of the Dark Knight's in there, as well as possibly a commentary. Could be wrong, but anyways, there were quite a few that kind of surprised me where they were at. And then, of course, the top distribute. I can't say that word tonight.
before he goes on, yes, you're right, Kev. It was the August 4th Guardians of the Galaxy.
excellent.
The top distribution locations for the podcast were about 13,000 were podcatchers. About 9,400 were web browsers. Surprisingly, almost 5,000 were mobile apps. About 3,000 were mobile web browsers. About 1,700 were tablet pad web browsers. 718, it says anonymous, so it must be no idea. Then there's TV set-top boxes, which is 53, websites 40, and the bots are 7. So, and then of course the platforms. Windows is of course the top one there, followed by iOS, Mac, and Android and others. So, and it seems that most of the clients, the top 10 anyway, are iTunes is number 1, with Internet Explorer being a close second somehow. The podcast app for iOS, there's iPhone, Chrome, iPad, Firefox, and a miscellaneous bunch of other ones. The one thing that I did kind of find interesting was the top countries, which was, I'm not surprised.
I was surprised at number 3 not being number 2.
I was too, actually, which is kind of why I found this the most interesting. I mean, North America, United States, 26,000. Yeah, I pretty figured that was a given. The UK was the surprising number 2, at 1,700, which is kind of funny because, I mean, it could be partially because of like the Nerdly connection. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I seem to gather a lot of followers from the UK on my Twitter, and I have no idea how. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I just don't know how. It kind of happens. Canada, I'm surprised, was not number 2, but it's number 3.
Yeah, our Canadian guests and co-hosts and whatever are dropping the ball.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that one, to be honest.
Just kidding.
We're looking at you,
people.
JT.
They're all great people.
Yeah. They dropped their balls.
Yes. They didn't tweet enough.
No, they froze off.
Told you, Dad. Sweden was number 4 at 1,200.
We love you, Sweden.
Yes. And Australia is number 4 or number 5 at 775. Germany is the next one at 416. Puerto Rico, Norway, France, and others. Which I kind of knew some of those countries only because I've had to unblock them.
Yeah.
And I say that because there were a lot of spam bots coming from various countries overseas, so I blocked all of them, and then as people contacted me, I would unblock them, like the countries.
Right.
So at least we got listeners all over, so that's cool. The feed burner stuff, some of it's inaccurate. I understand that. I think the only reason 2 of them have 0 is because I actually submitted their actual RSS feed and not the feed burner one.
Right.
Which is why there's nothing there for them. But I think it's because it wouldn't submit the feed burner for some reason. You know how iTunes is so finicky?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Tooncast Classic is still reigning number 1.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is not really a surprise. It's almost at 500 subscribers. Yeah, I'm not going to go into...
They really like us.
I'm not going to go into too much detail on them, but it does seem like they're all growing continuously month by month, even the retired shows. So, yay for that. And now that we're done with all this site technical jargon until we, jump into moments later of future plans that we can all jump in at, we should probably get to the unfortunate deaths of 2014.
Yeah.
As sad as that is to bring up, because unfortunately there were quite a lot of them this year.
Yep. So probably the most
they're all kind of hard to choose from.
No, I can't. One of the most heart-wrenching was the fact that Robin Williams passed away. I think one of the strangest ones, not because the person died, but just because the circumstances around his death, was Casey Kasem. That was just weird. Like, I remember Casey being in the news like every other week all year until he died, and even after he died, there was 3 or 4 news articles about after he was gone. We lost Smee in Mario, Mr. Bob Hoskins, Eddie Valiant.
All of his roles, that's what you go with.
What?
Mario Brothers.
Hey, I said Smee first. Smee's from Hook. Hook is good. Oh, I forgot. You don't like Hook. You hate Hook.
I think his most memorable was the Roger Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Eddie Valiant, yeah.
I'm waiting to see who he lists for Philip Seymour Hoffman now.
That would be Owen Shaw from Mission 3.
You could have been worse.
Well, it's probably the only thing I've ever seen him in.
Let's keep playing this game. Harold Ramis?
Well, everybody knows Egon died.
Okay.
Poor Alice. Alice has passed away as well. We lost a bunch of Batman the Animated Series voice actors this year. We lost Michael and Sarah. We lost Bob Hastings and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Bob Hastings was the voice of Commissioner Gordon, and Sarah was Mr. Freeze, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. was Alfred Pennyworth. We lost Howard's mom. We lost Mrs. Wallowitz from The Big Bang Theory. That's going to pose an interesting conundrum for the show to see what happens when they bring it back. Because I don't think that they would just replace her. Probably the biggest out of all of these outside of Robin Williams was Joan Rivers. She also passed away this year.
Yeah, I gained a newfound respect for her with her documentary a few years ago, like Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work. You kind of forgot that she was actually a really good comedian back in the day, and not just this person from E! Talking about people's clothing, but she almost took over the Tonight Show. She was quite the comic, and she still was. It was kind of sad that, her career kind of devolved into just like this fashion person, but yeah, her death was kind of crazy too, with like the surrounding issues with it and the doctor kind of screwing up, and it was kind of an odd situation. But one that's not listed on the list that Steve provided was Mike Nichols, who's the director of The Graduate and a few other films. He was, he died recently as well. He has a great filmography, and I think he was like 93 or so, but yeah, a lot of unfortunate movie deaths this past year, starting with Philip Seymour Hoffman earlier in the year, which is a really sad story when you hear about it. He was sober for over 20 years or so, and then kind of just went on this really quick and really fast downward spiral, and then succumbed to a heroin overdose, which is quite sad.
I think one of the ones that hit me the hardest early on, and it's just more so because of the nostalgic memories I have of watching the movies with my mom when I was little. With my mom and my sister was Shirley Temple too. That was one of my mom's favorite kind of actresses from back in the day, and she liked those movies, and I probably saw a majority of them, and that was kind of, I know she was obviously much older and far removed from that career, but it still was kind of like, oh, man, I don't know.
When I heard about this and when I saw Steve put it on the list, I was like, wait, I thought she was already gone. I really didn't know she was still alive till this year.
Well, and that's someone who has an
Shirley.
Yeah. I wasn't sure she was either.
That's someone who had an extraordinary story, too, in career, not just in acting, but especially when you think about how many child stars these days aren't able to kind of wade through those waters and maintain sanity, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But from going from the biggest child star probably in generations, and then she had a political career, philanthropic career. So just an amazing story, and amazing, you kind of think of people who have had from their earliest time to all the way through their entire life that did so many different things. I mean, it almost gives you kind of like that Forrest Gump feeling where like this person was involved with everything and saw everything and wore a lot of different masks over her lifetime.
Another one on the list, and I think we could probably move on after this, is Jim Rockford himself. Maverick, one half of The Odd Couple, and James Gardner. I just cannot believe he is gone. It's just so strange seeing some of the names on this list, because as people who, as anyone who watches any of these people in entertainment and whatever else, you think that they're going to be around forever, and obviously they're not. No one is, but I loved him when he, I don't want to say replaced, but when he came into 8 Simple Rules after John Ritter passed away. I absolutely loved him on that show. Seeing him as the original Maverick playing the father to Mel Gibson's Maverick in the 1994 film, that was kind of awesome. I loved that. All right, shall we move on to the top list?
Yes, we shall get out of this depressing thought process.
Happy times.
Yes, happy times.
On to happy times.
I'm probably the only one that did this first list that I have here, top 5 albums. I don't know if this is going to be... I think I have a top 20 albums or top 10 albums blog that I haven't written as of this recording. But my personal
favorite... Can I ask you a question first?
What?
How many albums did Nickelback come out with this year?
1.
Okay.
12.
I'm just checking. I actually did a top 5 songs. I didn't do an albums, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and I did a top 5 movie score / soundtrack to kind of go along
Excellent.
with it, because I don't really have a... I don't listen to much music that comes out today.
Yeah.
I'm an old fogey, I guess.
I did a few albums. One's technically not an album; it's a playlist on YouTube. And then,
Yeah,
That's almost better than an album right there. Mike, you got to be surprised. We all have something.
Yeah, really. Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way right now. On several of these lists, I'm sure some of us are going to be cheating at some point or another.
You mean not putting them in numerical order? Yes.
No.
I go through. Mine's in Wikipedia order. I'm just kidding.
That means it's 1,000 things. Yikes. No, I mean like, for example, when we get to cartoons, I'm going to bring up a cartoon that's not exactly. It's current, but it's not current.
You're the only one that cheats here, Mike. None of us cheat. I just typed into Google top 5 albums of 2014, and the first result, I wrote my first 5 down.
How many are Taylor Swift songs?
3.
Yeah. All right, so top 5 albums for me. I kind of mixed albums here with soundtracks and actual rock albums. Number 5 for me is Batman the Animated Series Volume 3 from La La Land Records. Once again, these people at La La Land Records and who they get to bring in to put these albums together are amazing. This is a 4-disc set. Has many of our favorite episodes. One of the reasons why it makes my list is because I finally get to listen to the music from the episode The Forgotten without having to hear any sound effects or vocal effects on it. Number 4 would have to be the Danny Elfman Batman collection. Simply for the Batmobile and Batwing music from the 1989 Batman film. The Batman Returns side of that set is a little strange. That movie is a little strange, and I think everyone's going to be surprised with the top 3, because I think, Kev, you're going to be really surprised, because the one you mentioned earlier is nowhere near number 1. At number 3, Nickelback's No Fixed Address.
I thought you said I was going to be surprised.
Well, it's number 3. It's not number 1.
Yeah.
But
It should have been number 2.
Oh, shut up.
And the universe can continue to live and go on.
All right.
At number 3 is Nickelback's No Fixed Address. The reason why it's only 3rd is because while I applaud them for trying a few different things, I'm sorry, Flo Rida should not be in a Nickelback song. Number 2 is Blackstone Cherry's Magic Mountain. And number 1 is Theory of a Dead Man's Savages.
Oh, I forgot about your Theory of a Dead Man.
Yeah, they're like, if I was gonna say between Theory and Nickelback taking a top spot, Theory of a Dead Man over trumps Nickelback any day. All right, Kev, what do you got?
Well, let me preface this by kind of repeating what Dan said. I don't listen to a lot of current music. I don't know why, but I just don't, because I don't listen to radio. I listen to podcasts now. So my music exposure is either through my girlfriend or through The Voice. And songs I hear on that show, I guess. So I just have some random songs that I liked. They're in no particular order. I'm not saying they're the best of the best or anything like that, but 5 songs that I don't mind listening to in no particular order. Marry Me by Jason Derulo. I've seen some cool YouTube videos with that song, some cool wedding proposals and different stuff like that. So I guess the sappy person in me thinks that's a decent song. Royals by Lorde. Counting Stars by One Republic. Say Something by Great Big World and Christina Aguilera, and Take Me to Church by, I don't know how to say his name, Hosier, something like that. So those are 5 songs I don't mind listening to. I just wanted to contribute.
Before we move on to the next person, let me ask you, are you happy with the Season 7 winner of The Voice?
Yeah, I was happy with the whole season. It was probably one of the best seasons they've had. Like 1 through 6 were amazing, so it was a great season this year. I don't know if you watched it or not, but It was definitely on par with some of their best seasons.
I watched most of it. I kind of faded out when it got to the live shows.
And Gwen Stefani and Pharrell were really good, so.
Yeah. All right, Dan, what do you got?
Like I mentioned, I'm doing more soundtrack/scores for movies this year. And starting off with number 5 is the soundtrack for Gone Girl, which is done by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. You know, Trent Reznor has kind of partnered with David Fincher since the Social Network, and they've kind of done great stuff ever since then. I mean, the score for How to Dragon Tattoo was okay, but the one for Gone Girl was really fantastic. It's probably my favorite part of that entire movie. Number 4 is the soundtrack for The Guest. Includes songs from artists like Survive, Gatekeeper. It's kind of like a nostalgic, like 90s, like indie rock type of soundtrack, which is honestly a lot of music I didn't even know of, but works really well with that movie. It's number 3 is the soundtrack the score for Grand Budapest Hotel, which is just a really upbeat, really fun score. It fits that movie perfectly, by Alexander Desplas, who actually has a number of scores this year for not Unknown, but The Unbroken and a few other films. So he's actually having quite the year. Number 2 for me is probably the most talked about soundtrack of the entire year, and probably one of the most talked about soundtracks the last time I could remember, maybe in years, really. And that's the soundtrack for Guardians of the Galaxy. Kind of really brought soundtracks back in a lot of ways. Just a lot of fun, a lot of great music that really tied in nicely with the entire film. I don't think there's been a better use of music for a comic book movie like ever in the way that was done. And I know Kev's going to love this, but my favorite score for the year, which it's been that way for quite a long time, is the score for Under the Skin by Michael Levy. So it's unique, it's odd, it's a lot of strange use of music, very inventive, and it's really haunting is the one word that always kind of sticks with me with that score. So,
well, it was the only score that almost made me shut the movie off on its own. But no, but those are, I haven't seen The Guest, but those are good choices. I know a lot of people like the Under the Skin, so I'm not going to try to bash it.
For a second there, I thought Dan was going to say Birdman.
No, that would have just been sounds.
Yeah, Guardians kind of brought back old formats this year, because they released it on cassette and they released it on vinyl and everything else. Not that anyone has a cassette deck or a record player anymore, but at least they're keeping with the tone of the film and the music, so there is that. What about you, Steve? Do you have a music list at all?
Yeah, mine's kind of a weird amalgamation, but I do have to agree as well with Guardians of the Galaxy. That's probably one of my favorite movie soundtracks because it actually made the music relevant to the film. As far as having artists singing the songs, because almost always they're not up to par. I have Weird Al Yankovic's Mandatory Fun.
Nice.
I will preface that with saying, upon first listening to certain songs as they were released, I hated certain songs because of the actual song it was based off of. And then the more I listened to it, the more I got into it and got to the point where I forgot the original song. To now where I can actually listen to the album completely and enjoy it. Like some of my favorites on there were like Word Crimes and like Foil and stuff, making direct copies of, I mean, obviously the whole thing's parodies, but I just like those two the best. Then this is where it gets a little kind of off. I listen to a lot of other parodies because that's just the kind of nerd I am. I like parody music, and one of the channels that I've kind of referenced in Altered Geek is the Warp Zone. Mm-hmm. And they've done quite a few, some are parodies, some aren't. But they've done like unplugged video game music, which is kind of cool. Like they've done, like Rainbow Road of, Mario Kart, and they've done, Donkey Kong music, Mega Man, Halo, and then they've got their actual music playlist, which they've done a couple Hobbit ones. Like they've parodied One Thing, the One Direction song, One Thing into One Ring about the Hobbit. They've done the All About That Bass, which they did a League of Legends version. They've done the Counting Stars One Republic parody, which is Grand Theft Auto. Call it Racking Stars. They've got the One Republic song, Love Runs Out, which is a Mario parody, which is Lives Run Out. So I mean, like they've got a ton of like interesting songs on there that are catchy to the point, because it takes actual references from current pop culture reference and kind of plays into it. So that's one of the reasons why I have them listed. That, and usually when I'm playing a game online, I have the playlist on YouTube on loop, just because I like the music. So
yeah,
unfortunately, I have to listen to the ads in between, unless I want to download the entire playlist.
Right.
So, but yep, that's my top 5 or 4.
All right. Now we're going to talk about our top 5 favorite TV shows. These could be, returning shows, new shows, whatever. Let's go with you, Kev. Do you have any honorable mentions before you get to the actual 5 shows you listed?
Yeah, I guess I do. I always have an honorable mention for any Law and Order or Criminal Minds show that's out there. It's not something I set, my calendar by, or that I make sure I'm there for every new show, but it's something that if nothing else is on and I'm not in the mood to watch an entire movie, I can easily watch one of those episodes. So I always enjoy those. As weird as this is, I'm going to have 2 honorable mentions for shows I have not seen a single new episode of this year. But I've watched all their previous seasons, and except for the end of last season, and I'm waiting to be able to catch up so I can watch them in order, and that would be Hawaii Five-0 and Revenge. I like both of those shows, just kind of guilty pleasures, but haven't seen any new episodes this year. That's why they're only honorable mentions. I simply listed the 5 TV shows that I've actually seen this year, so don't watch a lot of TV these days.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Dan? You don't watch a lot of TV in general, but...
No, although this year I probably watched more than I have in a long time, just because there's actually been quite a good shows, but a few that didn't make my list that honorable mentions, mostly Fargo, which I didn't include because I've only watched a few episodes of, like 1 or 2, and I really liked it a lot. I didn't expect it to be nearly as good as it was. One of those shows I fell back on, and it's not currently available on demand or online at all, so I haven't been able to catch up with that. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I just think is actually surprisingly really funny, and Andre Braugher is like perfect in that show. He's probably the most hilarious part. House of Cards, which was interesting this year. It became very soap opera like. Veep, which is again Comedy Central, not Comedy Central, but HBO show with very funny, and Black Mirror, which just came up on Netflix, and I didn't really include it because it's technically not fully a 2013 show or 2014 show. It's on from BBC. It's a really great, it's a new Twilight Zone type of series. It's each episode different characters. It's available on Netflix, but since they only really had 1 episode in 2014 that I was able to watch, I didn't include it. But I would recommend that for anyone who's a science fiction fan. It's kind of a downer, but it's a really good show.
Mm-hmm. Was that it for your TV at all?
That's all for my honorable mentions. Did you want me to go through the actual stuff?
Yeah, go ahead and go through your list.
Okay. Mine, for number 5 for me was, speaking of BBC, Sherlock. I find that show a lot of fun. Benedict Cumberbatch is quite amazing. I think this is the best season of Sherlock so far. Each past season there was 1 episode that wasn't quite up to par, but this year each episode was perfect.
I was so sure you were going to go with Elementary on that one.
I've never watched an episode of Elementary.
It's probably good.
Number 4 for me, a new comedy this year by Mike Judge, the man who brought us Office Space, and that is Silicon Valley. Really find it has possibly the best dick joke I think I've ever heard in its last episode, and just in how intricate it is and how it actually plays into the plot. It's one of the best moments of TV from this year, but a great kind of satirical look at today's age of technology and the world of Google and apps and all that great stuff. Number 3 for me is possibly the best looking show on television, and it amazes me this show is even on network TV, and that's Hannibal, starring one of my favorite actors, Mads Mikkelsen. I honestly think he plays the part of Hannibal better than anyone. Honestly, he has like this elegance to him. He's just a fantastic actor, and that show is just, it looks fantastic. It's grotesque in all the best ways. Number 2 for me, which this struggled. This was number 1 for me for such a long time, but I ended up moving it to number 2. And it's kind of the show a lot of people talked of. It's kind of an obvious choice, but it's True Detective, starring Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. A very heavy show, very plot heavy, great acting. It's not a show that you can just watch on a whim. You have to pay attention. It's very dense in what it's going after, and it's quite the experience. Kind of an episode series I had to watch twice to really appreciate it, but kind of a new bar for TV in a lot of ways. But my number 1, honestly, ended up being Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's took the format of what like The Daily Show did and the Colbert Report did, and I think upped it to an entire new level in the way it was structured, where it's only once a week. It kind of took the internet by storm. Each week there would be a segment that everyone was talking about it, at least everyone I knew, the way it hit on things like net neutrality, drones. Like, it really took a lot of the hot button topics, or even topics that were being ignored, and went at them with a really interesting take. And it's also really funny. I'm a huge fan of John Oliver. Was a fan of him since his days on The Daily Show. I love his podcast, The Bugle. So it's ends up being my number 1 show of the year. So that's it for me.
Mike, was I supposed to give my top 5? I just gave my honorable mentions. I thought we were all doing honorable mentions first.
Yeah, that's why I was a little. I'm like, wait.
And this will just show you how terrible my TV viewing habits are. And the fact that
it's all reality, folks.
No, and the fact that I don't get HBO or Showtime or any of those other networks. I'm actually listing a strange one at number 5. I'll go with The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Just because I like that he's on that stage, and I like that he's in charge of that show, and I like Jimmy Fallon. And I just feel like I should mention him because that happened this year, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I'd watch that show, but it's on too late for me. I can't. I'm too old to watch.
Then The Voice, like I mentioned, I enjoy that one. I think it's the only kind of talent competition show that's worth watching these days. So that's fun. Dan, I know you're going to hate this next one, but I actually have to put Gotham on here. I know so many people hate it, but I find it somewhat interesting for someone that's never watched any of the Batman cartoons or read the comics or anything like that. The only thing I know about Batman is from the movies, basically. But I think it's somewhat interesting. I'm finding some of the characters interesting. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I'm willing to keep watching it for now.
Yeah. To be fair, I stopped watching that after episodes 3, so I really can't speak to how it progressed since then.
I've watched everything, so
I mean, it's not for everybody, but I like some of the actors that are involved. I actually think it's one of the best. I know a lot of people hate the casting of Alfred, but
I don't see the problem with it. Only because they're going for a stronger rendition of Alfred, not the feeble butler.
Right, and I like it, and I think he's a cool character.
It's almost like an Earth One type of vibe that they're going for, which is going to be the same type of Alfred that they're going to have in the Batman v Superman.
The only thing, Alfred's grown on me now that he's actually a little bit more compassionate towards Bruce and not just yelling at him all the time. The one reason why I hated Pertwee as Alfred in the beginning was because he wasn't being a father to Bruce. He was just yelling at him constantly. And now that he's helping him more as, what are we up to, episode 9 or 10 or whatever it is?
10.
Before the break, yeah. So, and the next new episode is coming up in a couple of weeks. So,
I mean, the show's worth watching just for the just to see some of the characters appear. I know a lot of people are fans of Penguin so far, but yeah, I don't know. I just find it somewhat interesting. I think that my number 2 is probably canceled already. I could be wrong, but I have enjoyed watching Forever. Obviously, the story of the guy that is immortal. And every time he gets killed, he wakes up naked in the river. But But I don't know. It's somewhat interesting. I like some of the ways that he dies, and the fact that there's another one out there that he's trying to figure out what's going on with that. And my number one show, I guess I should preface this one too, because I haven't actually seen any of the 2014 episodes, but we're trying to catch up. We started with season 1 here about a month or two ago, and we're trying to catch up, and I'm really enjoying it, and that would be Arrow. So, I mean, we're not through season 1 yet, but I still want to list it because it's a cool show, and I'm looking forward to catching up and seeing all the different appearances and seeing the Flash crossovers and et cetera, et cetera.
All right. What about you, Steve?
Well, my honorable mentions include I like the new Tonight Show. I like Jimmy Fallon in general, just because I like I liked him on Saturday Night Live, and I like his stage presence. I think that he kind of gives the show a fresh take, and he's kind of more down to earth with the celebrities, and they kind of get more of a fun vibe.
The thing with him is he's so much more. It seems he comes across so much more genuine than a lot of the other late night show hosts.
He's actually excited.
Yeah, he's actually a fan, or he's actually, looks up to these people, and it's not just like, hey, I'm interviewing this guy, or this is cool, or I might get good ratings because I'm going to interview this guy, or whatever. It's like I'm interviewing people I really like, and it just comes across much more genuine with Jimmy Fallon than I see with like Letterman or Leno or some of those other people.
Yeah, I totally get that. Some of my other mentions would be Last Man Standing, Impractical Jokers, Whose Line Is It Anyway? I put Gotham on here because I have a different set for my top 5. And Big Bang Theory's on my honorable mentions, but that's also, again, because I have other things on my top 5. Getting into my top 5, my number 5 is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. While the show did basically suck in most of the first season, until Winter Soldier took effect, it took that and ran with it. And season 2 has been very strong. They've answered a lot of the alien issues. They've answered the Coulson issue. They've answered just about every problem that you could think of with what season 1 had. My number 4 is The Blacklist. Just James Spader. That's my reason. Supernatural is my number 3. I do really like the show. Some of the twists that they added in season 10, I wasn't really a fan of, but they kind of, as long as they keep the boat moving and don't do filler garbage, I'm fine. But I really like the show. I've been following it since season 1. Yes, I've been watching that show that long. My number 2 is Arrow. Because it's the closest thing to seeing Batman fighting in a suit. And let's face it, he's fighting the same villains Batman would anyway, with Ra's al Ghul, the Clock King, so on and so forth. And then my number 1 is The Flash. Because I think that they've actually done a superhero show that has powers that's actually relevant at this point. So, and I like the effects, and I just like I like the casting for pretty much all these shows that I've listed. It's just I think that this is probably one of the strongest newbies to the year. So that's
absolutely. And for me, for TV, for honorable mentions, I'm going to get the 2 canceled ones out of the way first. Fox has canceled what I called the most interesting show they've had for a while. That wasn't like a comic book show or wasn't a police procedural or anything like that. But Red Band Society, I really enjoyed that show.
Didn't I call that?
No, you called the other one, you jerk face. TNT canceled Dallas this year, and before the news hit that it was officially canceled, like 15 minutes before I saw a news article, before, all that happened, I said to Steve, oh, well, Dallas just ended, and it's, it's the mid-season or whatever, the season finale. He's like, oh, they'll cancel it. And not 15 minutes later, I started seeing news stories of TNT canceling Dallas. You asshole! The other two I'm going to mention, one is a Disney Channel show, only because it's a sequel show, and I think they're doing really with it. But Girl Meets World, it's not just a teeny show. Like, it's not just a show for teens, or it's not your Good Luck Charlie kind of show.
It's not your typical Disney program.
It's not your typical Disney program that would just placate to teenagers, because it is a sequel show. It is a family show. And all of the original people that were on Boy Meets World, the creators, the writers, everybody is back now doing it. And as the season 1 has progressed, it's gotten a hell of a lot better. The other one I'm going to mention, and a lot of people might find this strange since I'm not a horror film fan or horror genre film fan at all, but Kevin Williamson created a show on CBS called Stalker with Maggie Q and Dylan McDermott. I really like it. I think it's an interesting show, and I think they, really show us interesting ways of how everyone is stalked. It's a really cool show. I don't know. I haven't looked at any information if it's been canceled or if it's going to be renewed or whatever else, so I'm not sure, but it was a pretty good show for while it lasted. And in my top 5, CBS has the ultimate geek show at this point in Scorpion, because you have a bunch of geniuses who have to become FBI agents or work with the National Security Agency. A couple of really things that are cool about this show. First of all, it has the T-1000 as a good guy. Robert Patrick is in this as the agent Gabe Gallo. And it's cool to see a procedural that isn't your standard one, because they have these people that are just not your average agents, and they're all geniuses, and they all have different aspects to their, they all have different, quirks and whatever else, and it's just a really fun show. Number 4 would be The Big Bang Theory. It continues to be the best comedy on television for me. It is not pandering to the audience at all. At this point, it's more character-driven than just going for the funny at this point. So I absolutely love that one. The Flash is my number 3. Now, the only reason why Flash comes in at number 3 is because my number 2 actually ended this year. And I've been invested in that show for 6 years now. But Flash, Steve's right. It's the best superhero show on television. It's the only show at this point in this year that actually, is able to do superpowers properly. So absolutely love The Flash. Kevin, turn your ears off for a minute, because I'm going to spoil something on this. Steve, you know how Arrow does his little chin-up things, right?
Yep.
My favorite part of the crossover was when Flash did it. Absolutely love that. Number 2 is White Collar from USA Network. USA Network is slowly killing off all their shows that have been going on for years and years and years. White Collar, it was a really unique and interesting show for me. I like the ending. I think it was a really cool ending. And number 1 is The Blacklist. The Blacklist is the best spy show on television at this point here in the U.S. It has so many twists and turns, and they are playing such a long game with Red Reddington and Liz. Lizzie Keene. Absolutely love The Blacklist, and it's probably the only James Spader show I can actually say I absolutely love, because everything else he's done, I've hated his characters in. So that's TV. Anything else anyone wants to bring up about TV before we move on?
Nope.
My wife watches American Horror Story. Sometimes I'm forced to watch it too.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
It's not bad, I just don't care.
Oh, okay.
It seems pretty good.
Anything else you want to bring up, Kev, before we get on to the cartoons?
Can I open my ears again?
Wow. Good Lord. I guess before we get to cartoons, did anybody list video games this year?
No, I did not.
I listed a few games I would play if I was into video games.
I did not, because I'm playing past-gen games like DC Universe Online, Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii, Unreal Tournament 3 on the Xbox 360, Red Alert 2 on the PC, which is from 1999, Diablo 3, the expansion, which I think that came out this year, but that's pretty much my 5 I've been playing, and most of those games I've had for so long that I've been playing them for probably almost, some of them a decade and some of them like the last 5, 6, 7 years. So, yeah, I'm not one for new games.
So if you played video games, Kev, what would your
If I played video games, I would have been all over the newest Donkey Kong Country game, Tropical Freeze. I probably would be into the Assassin's Creed stuff because that looks cool and it's somewhat historic, like little bits and pieces, historical pieces, even if it's completely fictional. I heard a lot of good things about South Park, The Stick of Truth. A lot of people enjoyed that one. And then probably, wasn't there a new Mario Kart? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are some of the games I probably would play if I had time to play games, but I don't.
And I didn't make a games list because I'm still playing Super Mario World, so that's almost 25 years old. So,
folks, you got a bunch of game experts on your hands.
That's why we leave it to the off-the-cuff guys, which I'm surprised they haven't done a Game of the Year this year. Anyway, all right, cartoons. Kev, do you have any honorable mentions?
No.
All right, what is your top 5?
All right, top 5. I'm going to stretch real hard for number 5. It kind of was a 2014 cartoon if you want to consider the first couple months of 2014, I guess. But I really couldn't come up with more than 4, so I'm going with it as my number 5, and that would be the Looney Tunes show, because it was just ending when 2014 kind of began. Mm-hmm. So it sneaks in there. My number 4 would be Archer. I still need to catch up on a bunch of episodes of that, but that is just a fun and witty show and my kind of humor, I guess. Number 3, I haven't seen all the episodes, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot cartoon has got a lot of praise. A lot of people like it. I've only seen probably the first 4 episodes, but definitely something I would check out if I had time at some point. The 7D, number 2. I really haven't seen a lot of this cartoon, but from everything I've heard...
You gotta watch it.
Everything I've heard, it's pretty hilarious. It's probably supposed to be, by a lot of accounts, the best cartoon of 2014, the best new cartoon. And of course, the fanboy in me would have to put Star Wars Rebels at my number 1 spot. So that's it for cartoons.
What about you, Dan? Do you watch cartoons? Are you still a kid?
I don't really watch cartoons, but I did a top 5 cartoon movies that I watched this year. I do have some.
I like the way you think, Dan.
I told you people there'd be cheating involved here somewhere.
The only cartoons I watched this year that weren't related to film, I did South Park because it's one of my favorite shows. I haven't watched every episode, but there are some few standouts. I did watch an episode or 2 of BoJack Horseman, which is on Netflix, which is kind of an odd, strange show, but kind of funny. I'll probably go back to that even again. I did watch an episode of Star Trek Rebels, and I did like that a lot. I just haven't...
Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah,
not
whatever. Star Wars.
For me!
I made up a cartoon. You're not aware of it.
I like it.
But yeah, I had a J.J. Abram mess up there. So yeah, those are the only cartoons I've watched.
Good pun.
So my top, I'm actually cartoon movies. Like I said, animated films of the year. Number 5 is actually direct-to-DVD animated film. Probably my favorite one from DC this year. It's not been a great year for DC animated films. Most of them have been okay, and the one that actually ended up being my favorite, which I wouldn't put near their top, but it was enjoyable enough, which was Son of Batman. I did enjoy that. The other ones, like Justice League War, I thought was kind of a dud, and I forget the other one that came out, but I didn't find that one enjoyable. As a person who's not really read the New 52, I went into that not knowing much about it, but I actually like Damian. I don't know if that's a popular choice or not, but I enjoyed his character and his relationship with Batman and in how that all worked out. My number 4, I honestly, at the top of the start of the year, I thought this would be higher, and I did enjoy it, but it was not as good as I anticipated just because I have such a high respect for the studio that makes the stop motion animated films in Lanka, and what they did with Coraline and Paranorman, and that's with the Box Trolls is my number 4. I did find it really enjoyable. Its humor was maybe a little bit too dry at times. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but it's a sweet little movie, and I love their art style, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So it's great seeing just the behind the scenes and the intricacies that they go into making that work. Number 3 for me is Ernest and Celestine, which is a French film. It's came to the US in 2014. It's a classic hand-drawn animated movie. I know we don't see those very often anymore, but it's a sweet little story. It's based upon a children's book, and you can tell it's about this little mouse that becomes a friend with this bear who's an outcast, and they're both kind of, can't fit in the worlds that they live in, so they kind of find kinship with one another. It's one of those sweet tales, but it's quite good. It's a very lovely movie. It's kind of the throwback to those films we really don't get that much anymore. Number 2 for me is How to Train Your Dragon 2. I love the first How to Train Your Dragon. This one is nearly as good. Animation is fantastic. The scale that they can create with their world is phenomenal. The flying scenes are just great to witness, and the story I don't think was as strong as the first film, but it was still good enough. So, but my number 1 animated film, and I know Mike, you're gonna love it, and that's the Lego Movie.
Yes.
Like they said, everything is awesome, and the animation style of the Lego Movie is, to me, second to none. It's this political and social commentary is strong. It took some really huge risks, which you don't see anymore. And Phil and the directors, I think, have just been on par with everything they've done from the 21 Jump Street franchise to this. They're just really smart, and they really know how to do satire in a cool way. So that's my number
Dan,
1.
did you see Big Hero 6 at all?
I did not see Big Hero 6.
Okay, I haven't either. That's the only reason I asked, because otherwise that's outside of the ones I obviously haven't seen the Batman one, and I haven't had a chance to see Ernest and Celestine yet, but otherwise you have them in the exact same order I would put them in. So definitely have Box Trolls and How to Train Your Dragon 2, even though a lot of people are saying that's the best animated film of the year. I can't agree with them. I think Lego Movie is a head and shoulders above it.
Yeah, I agree.
You mentioned Son of Batman, and I'm not a fan of Damien. I actually enjoyed Assault on Arkham more.
Yeah, I had issues with that because I felt the way they tried to incorporate Batman was really sloppy, and it ended up really detracting from it overall. And I think it would have been better if they just focused on the Suicide Squad themselves. But I thought the storyline for Son of Batman was just better handled and more coherent than that one. I didn't hate Assault on Arkham. I just thought I had more issues with it than that one.
Yeah. What about you, Steve? You got any honorable mentions for your cartoons before you get to your top list?
No, I don't have honorable mentions. I just have straight mentions.
Funny.
Yeah, funny guy. So yeah, I actually only have 2, just for the fact that one's a recurring show, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I just really like the show. I just wish that they'd get the hell out of the freaking village. I wish they'd go back to the city. Get out of the woods. Yeah, get out of the woods. They're stuck in a cabin in the woods. So, and then Star Wars Rebels has actually been pretty interesting.
Yep.
So,
and there was as of this recording, there was a news article that posted earlier about Frank Oz coming in to do Yoda for that show. Absolutely awesome. So those are the only 2 you're going to bring up?
Yep. I don't have anything else that I really watch that's old or actually new. I watch a bunch of old stuff, but...
For me, I don't have any honorable mentions. I just have my 5 to 1. Number 5, surprisingly, when I can catch the episodes, I'm really digging Hulk and the Agents of Smash. Seeing all the different Hulks interact with each other, it's hilarious. Absolutely love that one. Number 4 is Star Wars Rebels. I agree, it is an interesting new show. It hasn't really brought any classic characters in yet, as far as I know, at least out of the episodes I've watched. It's pretty much all original characters to the show at this point. But I am liking it. I like the animation and the effects and everything else. TMNT would normally be at number 1, but it's at number 3 this year because they started the 3rd season the very first episode did amazing with the homages to the original 90 film and a bunch of other stuff. It was great. But as Steve said, they need to get the hell back to New York. The only episode after the first one for season 3 that I really loved was Race the Demon, when Donatello becomes the demon car. That was awesome. Number 2 is Phineas and Ferb, because, well, it's Phineas and Ferb. They had a really cool year this year. They did a Star Wars special. They had a bunch of other stuff going on. So absolutely love that. And number 1 for me is the 7D. Everybody, I don't care if you have kids or not, everybody needs to watch this show. It is by Tom Ruegger and pretty much anyone that was doing Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures back in the day. It's hilarious. It's got Kevin Michael Richardson as Happy. It's got Mr. Goofy Bill Farmer as Doc. It's got, it's got Billy West as Bashful. It's got Kelly Osbourne as one of the villains, as Hildy Gloom. It's just so hilariously funny. It's absolutely awesome and amazing. Everyone needs to at least check out 1 or 2 episodes. All right, so that's cartoons. Now we get to the top 10 films. Oh boy. Dan, do you have any honorable mentions for your top 10 films?
Before Dan goes, I think we should go around the table and do our honorable mentions first, then do our top 10s.
Okay, I don't have any, so who's next?
Well, just to preface this, I'm not giving my actual top 10 films yet. That'll be a separate episode that we have plans for, Dan and I and some others. But I will be giving you a top 10 of sorts. My films are all going to be the best science fiction and fantasy films of the year. So I'll be giving you science fiction and fantasy genre films to make it a little bit more suspenseful for my actual top 10, which will be coming very soon.
And similar to Kev, like, since we're doing that episode, I'm giving my top 10 like underappreciated or kind of under hidden gems of 2014 that aren't going to be in my actual overall top 10. So just movies that maybe, a lot of them which you can actually get online as we speak. So though I do have some honorable mentions for those that did not quite make my list, even though it's kind of like an honorable mention of an honorable mention list. And one was, I'm not a huge horror fan, but I do like a good horror movie here and there. And this is actually currently streaming on Netflix, and it is the movie Oculus, which is a strange little like horror film that centers on mirrors. And it's just a really off-putting and really unique take on the genre. And it's just really head trippy. And like, it reminds me of like the best type of like Twilight Zone episode in the way it carries out. It's not very like gory or anything like that. It's more of a head trip than like a scare fest, which I really enjoy. Another one is actually for those science fans, is this documentary called Particle Fever, which is about the collider in Europe currently in that process of making it. It's really fascinating learning about how that was made and what it can do, and just the discovery of it. It's really an interesting take, and that's also currently available on streaming on Netflix. And lastly, for a quick honorable mention, is this movie called it's this movie called Hide Your Smiling Faces. It's just this really kind of deep drama. It's a little heady at times. Reminds me a lot of Terrence Malick. In the way it's shot, it's not nearly as like abstract as a Terrence Malick movie, but it's just very a lot of tracking shots. You can definitely see the influences there. It's about this drama that happens between these kids and the tragedy that occurs and how they try to deal with that tragedy in this really small town. So just some honorable mentions of my honorable mentions.
Alrighty then.
I don't have any honorable mentions because that would be weird. I had to stretch just to get 10 science fiction fantasy films that I could consider in a top list, so no honorable mentions for me.
Okay.
What about you? Any honorable mentions, Mike?
Let's go to Steve first, since I already said I didn't have any.
Oh, that's right.
Can I do my
You want to do your shit list, don't you?
Yeah, my shit list, and
Oh,
then
I
do my
have that too.
honorable
I have that
mentions.
too.
So I'll do my honorable mentions, and then we can go around to our shit list, and then we'll do our quasi top 10s.
All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. My shit list, I have Blended. Yes, I have an Adam Sandler movie in my shit list.
Surprising.
Not hard this year. I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because of multiple reasons. Transformers Age of Extinction. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. St. Vincent. Predestination. And Left Behind.
You didn't like Left Behind?
No, because
You saw Left Behind?
I've read the book, and I've seen the actual book adaptation, and this movie is literally 7 minutes of that other movie.
Yeah, I saw it just as a joke, but
this entire movie was 7 minutes of the actual 2-hour movie.
So you didn't like St. Vincent either, huh?
We actually got up and left from that movie because my wife thought it would be funny because it had Melissa McCarthy in it. And normally she's in movies where she's obnoxious, loud, and just, obscene. And my wife likes her as that character in the film she's in. And when she discovered that it was mostly a Bill Murray movie. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest Bill Murray fan. There's certain Bill Murray movies I like in the past. This was not one of them. This was so dry comedy that I couldn't sit through it either. And we ended up seeing a worse horror movie that I would have just preferred to just leave the theater altogether. But
that's funny because
yeah.
you said you thought the movie was going to be funny, and I for sure thought you were going to say because Bill Murray was in it, and you said because Melissa McCarthy was in it. So you totally threw me off there.
She said that, and she's like, "Well, I thought you liked Bill Murray." And I says, "No." I says, "I don't like Bill Murray." I says, "I told you before we actually bought tickets, this was not going to be a funny movie."
All right.
So we went and saw a horror movie that was just as bad.
Nice.
Because of her. So, Predestination, I will preface with saying that it's terrible because... Has anybody here seen it?
I have not.
No.
Okay, don't. It's about it's a lot of time travel and the fact that you can't change your destiny, but it's about a dude that's in the future trying to prevent his previous... Like, it's him trying to prevent this chick that got... Because she had both parts, it turned into a dude. Because of a pregnancy of where this guy took her back in time as the dude. And she slept with herself, her younger self, which made a baby, which he took to the past, which is actually her. And
I'm sorry, I lost you.
Oh, wait, it gets better. It gets better. And then she gets this massive burn and ends up looking like him after this point. So it's actually... And then this whole premise of the whole movie is to stop this bomber in the future, and it's him when he's really old. So it's actually the whole movie is about this one person at different points in their life, and they're time traveling and screwing themselves, making themselves, and killing themselves. It's horrible.
I'm sold.
Such a terrible movie. It was. My wife was like, "What did we just watch?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure we just got mind fucked."
When you first told me the title, I was going to ask you, is this a prequel to the Final Destination films?
I think that would have only made it better because somebody would have actually died and stayed dead. No, this one, it's so terrible. Like, the time paradoxes in this should not exist because the person made themselves.
Everybody go back to 1985 and listen to what Doc Brown says.
Marty, you can't sleep with your mother.
Mike, did you have a shit list?
I know I'm going to get flack for this, but pretty much every animated film that was released this year.
Did you see How to Train Your
I
Dragon?
wouldn't go that far, but...
Okay, that's the exception. The Nut Job. Peabody and Sherman. The Lego Movie. What else?
You realize you are the solitary, singular, only person that didn't like the Lego movie in the entire world, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm the only person that really hates it with a passion, but there are other people that I know that don't like it.
Mike's like, I'm the only one that's willing to admit that I didn't like it.
Frozen. Frozen sucked.
Frozen is not
the
2014.
Worst. Still. They're advertising the goddamn sing-along DVD.
And Mike has made his movie knowledge aware.
Let's see, what else? God, I'm trying to think what was the other one. I don't know, but that would be it.
Wreck-It Ralph?
Now you're really reaching. Let's see, Steve, what is your top 10?
You are all out of order, sir. I want to give my shit list first.
Okay, go ahead.
I did my shit list, so I went out of order too. So whatever.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I have already heard like 4 different podcasts about the worst movies of 2014, and every single person on every single one of those shows I think has listed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's universally accepted that that's a terrible movie, I'm pretty sure at this point, for all kinds of reasons. And if you want to hear more about them, there's an M-Wire Weekend at the Movies episode where I go on a rant about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I will not repeat that rant. Strangely enough, on all of those lists, I'm not hearing enough of these next 3 movies, and I think they all should be on a lot of these bad lists. Transcendence.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a bad film from basically beginning to end.
The concept was interesting, but it was poorly executed.
Oh, it was on it was on something I was anticipating for this year, but there's very few movies that I wanted to stop in the middle or walk out of the room on this year. I think there was only 2 of them, and Transcendence was one of them that I really had a debate with myself whether I could let the movie continue to play or not. I think people are just giving it a pass because they think they expected this movie to be terrible, but The Legend of Hercules with Kellen Lutz is one of the worst pieces of filmmaking in maybe the last 100 years.
Yeah, it is on my list. Like, if you listen closely enough, you can hear the accountants in the background just coming up with the sheets to make that a tax write-off, because it is a horrible excuse of a movie. It's embarrassingly bad.
Yes.
And it's CG. Like, you would watch it and think, oh, this is like a direct-to-DVD movie or a TV movie. No, it's a feature-length film that was released, and
it literally has nothing to do. The only thing about Hercules is the name of the movie. Like, otherwise, it really has nothing to do with Hercules whatsoever.
It has nothing to do with anything legendary. I can guarantee you.
And it actually made the other movie, Hercules, 10 times better than it probably actually was. Just because it was
the one with the rock.
Yeah. And I've actually heard some people praising this movie, but to me, Godzilla was also a horrible movie this year. Had the potential, had the effects, had the visuals that could make it a great movie, but they took way too many missteps on that one that really left a sour taste in my mouth.
Comparing it to Godzilla 2000, which one would you like better?
Probably this one, just for the visual aspects of it, and how cool Godzilla and the monsters I thought actually did look, if they would have showed them for more than 10 to 20 minutes of the entire film. But I know a lot of people liked the film, but man, there were very few high points in that film. And once Bryan Cranston's screen time ran out, the fun of that movie kind of ran out as well. So those would be 4 of them, and then I have a tie for my last shit list movie. Just to be the jerk that has to beat the dead horse, I guess. The other movie that I almost walked out of the room on, and I would have if there wasn't 6 of us watching it, and it would have basically meant that I left the whole group and went in my room by my lonesome. That was Under the Skin, and I'll go ahead and give that one a tie with Birdman. Probably the 2 movies that made me more mad than I have been in a long time watching the film. But I know I am very much in the minority. That is like Mike saying that the Lego movie is bad as me saying those 2 movies are bad, so I know I'm in the minority there.
Yeah, you are. So. Proudly, it's fine.
Dan, do you have a shit list?
No, be honest, I would assume Mike and Steve would probably have the same reaction. So both of those movies.
I mean, Under the Skin has an audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes of like 50%. So I mean,
which it doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah, it's not one that the populace would really like. Birdman scores much higher, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, it's for a select taste.
Yeah, I didn't, which is why I kind of like it. So.
Your palate is much more refined than mine.
No, it's just, I don't know. It's a movie, like I said, I love, but I would recommend to pretty much no one. Just because it's, it is what it is. And
what are some other movies that you would recommend to no one?
Well, there's movies I would recommend to no one just because they're really awful. Those being Sabotage with Arnold Schwarzenegger earlier this year, which was really depressing knowing it came from the same guy that gave, made Fury and other good movies. It was awful. Wish I Was Here with which is Zach Braff's example of opportunity just to basically, celebrate himself. It's like everything wrong with indie film made in that one movie.
I heard about that on Screen Junkies. They were talking about how terrible that film was.
It was pointless in every way possible. I don't hate Seth MacFarlane, but A Million Ways to Die in the West was a pointless movie in a lot of ways. I thought Ted
Especially
was
if you
okay.
saw the trailer.
Yeah, exactly. It was I don't know. I don't get what he was trying to do with that in any way, shape, or form. Also, I Frankenstein just made me really sad for Aaron Eckhart because I'm like, you're a good actor. Why are you in this awful, awful movie? Pompeii, which is just, that to me is the example. Those two
movies both came across better to me because I watched them in the same week as The Legend of Hercules.
I could see that.
I mean, at least like either of them, but I was like, man, that was better than that Hercules film.
Yeah. At least, I mean, the special effects in Pompeii are at least well done, but compared to Legend of Hercules, it's just such a, I don't know, pointless. It's overstuffed and just so hollow of a movie. And they've been mentioned a lot, but Transformers: Age of Extinction, which was just 4 hours I'll never get back, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was god awful in every way possible. So, except for one scene, besides that, it was pretty bad.
Great.
What, the elevator?
Yeah.
That seems to be the general consensus where they actually were the Ninja Turtles.
I thought you were going to say the gratuitous Megan Fox scene.
Oh God. Yeah.
You mean the typical Megan Fox scene?
Yeah.
Oh, they're standing in the the light and yeah. Anyways,
has anybody not given their shit list?
Nope.
I think we can move on.
All right.
I've given my shit list. I actually forgot my part of my honorable mentions, but I'm gonna leave those alone because I just don't care at this point.
All right. Who's doing their top films first?
I guess you are.
All right, excellent. I'm actually going to just I'll do 10. Why not? Like I said, this is just science fiction and fantasy. If I have to pick science fiction and fantasy, these would be my top 10. Not saying they're all great, because there's probably only 5 or 6 that are actually films that I would highly recommend. But since I wanted to make it up to 10, I'll put Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 at number 10. All the Hunger Games films are basically entertaining. So I enjoyed this one. I have a lot of problems with a couple of the character relationships, so it's all the way down at 10. Number 9, I put Noah. That's just kind of a fun fantasy film. Definitely not what you expected from that film, unless you knew the director behind it, I guess. You could have maybe guessed that it was going to be something crazy. But you got to like the biblical story that meets the fantasy world and the mind of Darren Aronofsky. So that was fun, I guess. Number 8, I know a lot of people hated this one. Actually, the guys over at Film Spotting, one of them listed it in their top 10 films of the year. I would not go that far, but if I have to pick science fiction and fantasy, I'll put it in there, and that would be Maleficent. Number 7, a lot of people like to hate The Hobbit. And I get that the Hobbit films are not the Lord of the Rings films, and when you're comparing anything to a masterpiece like that, you're going to be disappointed. But I really don't think the Hobbit films are quite as bad as people make them out to be. And I think Battle of the Five Armies might be the best of the 3, so I'll put that at number 7. Recently, I just saw Into the Woods. It was one of my most anticipated films of the year. Definitely enjoyed that film. I'll put that at number 6. If anybody is a science fiction fan and has not seen my number 5 film, you need to go see it. It's fun. It's interesting. It's entertaining, and that would be Snowpiercer. That's a great science fiction piece, somewhat of a hidden gem, although a lot of people in more of a movie critic circle do know about it and are talking about it. But I think a lot of other people might not have heard of that one. But that's definitely a good one, and it is streaming on Netflix currently, so you can watch it if you have that. Number 4, maybe one of the more polarizing science fiction films to come out in quite some time. A lot of people loved it, and a lot of people hated it. It was enough to keep me interested. I know you don't like it, Dan, but I'll put Interstellar in here at number 4.
I liked it. I just didn't love it.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I didn't like necessarily love it either, but I found it interesting enough in the science fiction genre to put it a little bit higher on my list here. I know I'm going to rate this one a little higher than most people would, but again, maybe it's just because I had to suffer through that Kellen Lutz debacle at the beginning of the year, but I really enjoyed The Rock and Hercules. I thought it was a cool take on the tale. I thought it was an interesting idea to kind of have the band of people, so it's not necessarily Hercules doing all the heroic godlike feats. And I was entertained by it. I've seen it actually 2 or 3 times this year. Actually, probably my biggest surprise of the year. One of the biggest surprises would be my number 2 for science fiction, and that would be whatever title you want to call this one: Live, Die, Repeat / Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. No.
That is a good film. That is a fun film. And again, if you're a science fiction fan, you need to check that out, no matter how much you may or may not have wanted to write Tom Cruise off. This is a good film, and Emily Blunt and Tom Cruise are both very good in it. So,
what is it called again?
Live,
Edge
Die,
of
Repeat.
Tomorrow is the...
If you're looking for the DVD, it's going to be called Live, Die, Repeat. If you were back when it came out in the theater, it was Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, when you said Live, Die, Repeat, I was like, does Brock Lesnar appear in that movie? No.
It's Groundhog Day.
And my number 1, which I'm glad it's number 1 since it was my most anticipated film of the year. So my favorite science fiction / fantasy film of the year would be Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So that's my list.
What about you, Dan?
Again, these are just like my top 10 underappreciated or just overlooked films of the year. And you guys mentioned Transcendence as like one movie you hated. I didn't watch it just because I know it was, a lot of people hated it. But this movie kind of gets a lot of the same themes that was going for, and it's called The Machine. It's a UK film currently available on Netflix. It's in the near future where this man tries to basically, it's kind of like a Frankenstein story in a way. He tries to create a life from a woman who passed away, and it's kind of it deals with using that for the military or not. The special effects are really impressive for such a small movie. Number 9 for me is this movie called Tracks. It stars Mia Wasikowska. You probably know her mostly from she played in Alice in Wonderland. She was the main character. She plays this woman in the 70s who tries to cross the outback in Australia by herself, just using camels. It's a nice little adventure film. It's kind of like if you saw the movie Into the Wild, I guess you can. There's a lot of aspects to that are similar with Tracks. Number 8 would be this movie Beneath the Harbor Sky. It's a kind of a coming of age film about like 2 friends who are trying to get out of this really small Maine town and dealing with their families who are have some criminal past. It's not the perfect film, but I really like just kind of relationships of the main characters. It's very realistic. It's like kind of reminds me a lot of kind of Mud of last year. It has a similar feel to it. Number 7 is one of the strangest films I've watched in quite a long time. It has one of my favorite openings of the entire year. It's a movie called Borgman. I think it comes from the Netherlands. It's about this crazy character who shows up to the door of this suburban family, and it's possibly that he has some evil intentions behind what he's doing, and basically he kind of like ends up like kind of haunting them in a way. It's a really different take on like the home invasion genre in a way. Stars a really great performance. It's kind of horror-ish, but not quite. So it's just really weird the entire time. Never quite sure what's happening, but. Number 6 is this movie Bethlehem. It's an Israeli film, kind of like a true crime story. It's kind of cool just seeing that culture and seeing like kind of the story of this kid who gets kind of caught in between his ties with his family and the police in that area. It's kind of like almost like a Martin Scorsese for film for Israel. So it's that was quite interesting. Next for me would be this movie called Big Bad Wolves. It's a story about a child abductor who gets trapped by the family or by the parent that feels like he had taken their child, and he abducts that person to try to find his daughter, and the length that he goes to try to get the information from him, and how there's a transition to like who you feel bad for because of the situation. So it's a hard film to watch, but it's quite interesting. Next on my list would be the story Omar. It's about a kid who's basically living in the Middle East, about his struggle with trying to kind of he's in love with this girl who is the daughter or the sister of a rival gang leader, and it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type of situation, and him dealing with that along with all the other issues that are going on in his area. And next for me is this movie Night Moves by Kelly Reichardt. It's starring Jesse Eisenberg and Elle Fanning. They're playing eco-terrorists, and they're trying to basically blow up this dam. And it's a story about that process and what happens afterwards. It's almost like a noir in the sense of Portland, Oregon. It's weird in how it makes Portland, Oregon into this noir setting, but it's really quite good. Number 2, starring the legendary actor that's kind of in everything anymore, and that's Tom Hardy in this movie Locke. This got a lot of attention, but it's quite good. It's not a movie for everyone, so I might just kind of say it's an experiment and not necessarily an actual film, because the entire film involves him going on a car ride, and that's the entire movie. It's Tom Hardy. There's no other actor in the entire movie. It's interesting how it was shot. Basically, he went on this car ride, and what they did was where they would have the GPS was actually his lines for the film as he was basically acting and getting these calls that would come in and interacting with the people. So it's interesting, and you would think, like, how could a movie about a dude in a car talking work? Well, it's Tom Hardy, and that's how it works.
And it might be in my top 10.
I do enjoy that movie a great deal. It was very close to making my top 10. And last for number 1 is this movie 71. It stars Jack O'Connell, who I think, I never heard of before this year, but he's already become one of my favorite actors because of a movie called Startup, which I may talk about later on. And also, he was in Unbroken, which came out during Christmas break about the Olympic athlete. So he's kind of become a big star in this year. But 71, it takes place during the 70s, obviously called 71, during the Northern Ireland conflict. And he gets caught behind enemy lines. But it's interesting because he's behind enemy lines in an urban setting in Northern Ireland. And it gets into the kind of the politics of that time because, you have some really huge issues going on. So it's very interesting in how it's really full of tension, yet it's really also gets you kind of touches in that world really quickly. So sorry, I'm trying to go through these quickly as possible, but yeah. So that's my most. I really love that movie a lot. It's called 71. It's not really available anywhere currently, but it should be coming out, I think, either on DVD or on demand very shortly. So it's quite good. And I'll stop rambling. So
great list.
Whoever's next.
Steve, go ahead.
All right, here's my list. I wanted to like this more, but again, it's just a setup movie. Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 1. There were a few issues I had with it, but overall it was enjoyable. But again, it was a setup movie, so I kind of... It's one of those instances where I wish Part 1s and Part 2s would actually just be the whole damn movie and just leave it at that. Because I hate that money grab. I really do. Because I think that it destroys films when they cut them into two pieces. Because you drag one out way too long. The other one's just a big battle. I enjoyed The Giver was another one. My wife read the book for that as well. That was kind of interesting. We've actually watched so many damn movies this year. It's insane. We watched Lucy, which was actually kind of interesting. Had to do with the this drug that got smuggled in her stomach.
Yeah, that was a lot better than I anticipated. I thought, somehow that concept it didn't completely work, but it was kind of like really a huge head trip, but yet still an action movie at the same time. So
it was almost like some of what happened in Transcendence, only it seemed more in, I don't know, it didn't seem as weird.
Yeah, it was like Tree of Life, the way of Karate Kid or something. I don't know. It was
different. I don't know. Normally I don't go for that kind of film, but it was pretty decent. And then you had Morgan Freeman in it too, so that always helps. X-Men: Days of Futures Past. I enjoyed it because it was kind of a mashing and amalgamation of both the classic. When I say classic, I mean like the early 2000s X-Men cast with the new generation. And then getting to see Wolverine like a rubber band in past and future. So that was kind of neat. I enjoyed Edge of Tomorrow, which I wasn't sure one way or the other if I was going to like it or not, because normally Tom Cruise movies are Tom Cruise movies. Technically this was too, but I liked the play on the whole alien aspect and the learning and the action film, and it's just I don't know, it fit really well. Horrible Bosses 2 was a nice addition to that franchise. We were going in, my wife and I were thinking that it was going to be like another kind of like a Hangover type series.
Right.
Which we were hoping against, and thankfully this delivered exactly what we were hoping. So Horrible Bosses 2 managed to one-up the previous film, and basically it managed to not repeat the first movie and do something new, so that was a welcome addition. Dumb and Dumber 2, the only reason I have it on here is because I don't have an Adam Sandler film on here. But truthfully, this was actually better than the Adam Sandler film, which is sad to say. And it wasn't as dumb as I thought, but it was a bit long. So there's that. Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed that film. I think that it kind of ramped things up. It also helped kind of do something new with the universe by exposing Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of throwing everything you knew and trusted out the window with the entire series. And then they did the second fake death of a major character in Nick Fury. And then I have Guardians of the Galaxy, just because it was kind of a fun sci-fi version of the Avengers.
Awesome. All right, for my list, I'm really surprised that nobody, and I didn't do it either, but I'm surprised nobody had either on their top 10 or Dan and Kevin cheated and didn't do overall, but I'm surprised nobody mentioned Earth to Echo and Shit List or anything like that. Cause
I didn't see it.
I didn't hate it. I think it's a fun kids movie. It's just nothing that I could take too serious.
Right. I thought when I saw the trailers for it, I'm like, are they trying to make the next new E.T. film?
If it hadn't come so close removed to Super 8 from, the year before, I think I'm getting my years right. They were too much, I don't know, it's too much the same type of feel for a movie, but I could see kids liking it.
Right. All right, for me, for my top 10, at number 10 is Kevin Costner in 3 Days to Kill. The only reason why this even made the list is because I was like, wait, Kevin Costner did a movie after Man of Steel?
He had like 4 movies come out this year.
Well,
none of them good. But.
It's a standard movie, 3 Days to Kill, but I think one of the reasons why I liked it so much is because he's basically auditioning for the next Batman franchise. The entire movie, his voice is nothing but gravel.
It's like his Taken.
Yeah, Liam Neeson pulls that off better.
Yeah,
it was his turn in Hollywood to try to do the Taken movie. Yeah. We'd already had Mel Gibson do it, and a couple other people. It was up to Kevin Costner next.
Yeah. Number 9 is The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. I really like this one. I actually first found out about this on Facebook from a Facebook advertisement. And at this point, in this day and age, after 3 Iron Man movies, it's kind of nice to see Downey do something else other than Tony Stark. Specifically. But I like that one. I think this is going to shock everybody. At number 8 is Age of Extinction.
You're a dipshit.
What?
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I liked it. I like it better than the first 3 films. I'm so happy that they actually have, new cast members. Number 7 is Need for Speed, which actually, even though it's a bad movie, I still enjoyed it, and it's much better than Transformers 4. And it's probably the only thing that I actually like. What's his stupid name? Pinkman. Aaron Paul in. Number 6 is Muppets Most Wanted. Comparing the 2 Muppet movies, the 2011 movie and this one, the 2011 one was better. This one just felt weird. Did you have any opinions on Muppets Most Wanted, Kev, at all? Either way, did you like it, not like it?
I just heard on the True Bromance podcast from one of the guys that it was his least favorite film of the year. I would not go that far. I actually liked the film. I don't think it was quite as good as the first reboot of the Muppets, but I don't think it was that bad. I think some parts were weak, but overall it was fun. And that first opening scene with the opening number song was fantastic. So I could never rate that as that bad of a movie.
Yeah. Number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. As I said in the Guardians podcast with Michael Powers that we did over on MWire, for me, I waited until that hit media release. It just wasn't, I wasn't excited as everybody else was, because I know nothing about the characters. For me to get excited, everybody should know this by now. We're almost 6 years into the network. It has to be a franchise I know. Will I see the movie eventually? Yeah, sure, I did. And I enjoyed it very much. And Steve is right. The music made the movie. The music really... both the soundtrack songs and the actual score enhanced the movie so well, along with special effects and everything else. Number 4, and I know I'm in the minority here, but number 4 is TMNT. I liked the movie. I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was going to hate it. I thought I was going to hate Tony Shalhoub as the voice of Splinter. I thought I was going to hate Knoxville as the voice of Leo. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
The vocals weren't the bad part. It was the story and how they characterized everything.
Well, I want
or the lack thereof of story.
The plot had the main villain. His motivation. He was a super rich guy, and his motivation was to get richer.
By trying to make the world into this huge disease and then sell the cure to them.
So he was beyond rich. He was one of the most rich men in the world, and then he wanted to get more money. Yeah, that was some good motivation. I'm sorry. I will let you like it. I don't mean to poo-poo on you.
Okay, now, all right, Kev. Let me ask you this: outside of the plot, outside any of the stuff you don't like, did you at least like the scene at the end with the 4 turtles?
I'll tell you what the things I liked the most about the movie were the things that I thought I would like the least, and that was the look of the turtles. I didn't mind the look of the turtles. I thought Michelangelo was fine, but I thought Splinter was horrible. I thought Shredder and the bad guy and the plot of that was horrible. Megan Fox is horrible. I didn't have the same hate for Whoopi Goldberg that everybody else did, but the best thing was actually the look of the turtles, and that's what I hated the most going into it. So,
okay, but at the end of the movie, when the 4 turtles are on the ledge and they think they're going to die, and Raph breaks down and becomes emotional, which Raphael never does in the entire history of the turtles. He ever rarely becomes emotional because he is, the angry chip of the group. Did you at least like that scene with the turtles themselves?
It wasn't the worst scene of the movie.
Alrighty,
was he emotionally compromised? Did he have to be removed from command?
Oh God.
I can't wait to see it. Wait, what number was that on yours?
Number 4.
I can't wait to see the top 3.
Number 3 is Time in a Bottle, X-Men Days of Futures Past. I loved it. I thought it was great. It's much better than First Class.
I mean, I think that was a good movie as well.
But, X-Men Days of Futures Past, anytime that they bring something, that's a classic storyline. And the fact that Singer was able to come back and adapt it so well, I thought everything was done superbly with it. The whole Quicksilver Time in a Bottle scene might be the best scene out of the entire film. So I absolutely love that. Number 2 is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. The only thing I found wrong with this one, and the reason why it's not number 1, is because I don't think they did enough with Bucky. I just don't think they used Bucky well enough in this. They made him the Winter Soldier, and that's a nice nod to the comics, but there was zero storyline with him. There was like 2 moments of Steve trying to get through to him, and that was it. The rest of it was all about Hydra and everything else. What I love about the movie is the fact that Gary Shandling was working for Hydra the whole time. That's hilarious. And number 1, and I think everybody's going to shun me for this one, but I don't give a shit. Expendables 3.
Get out.
Shut up, both of you, shut up. The reason why this is my number 1 movie of 2014, my personal favorite, is because I love how they are able to take all of the old action stars, and now that they are older, and make them look cool again. And anytime Mel Gibson shows up as a villain is great.
Like in real life.
God, don't bring... See, that's the difference, is I prefer to just look at the person in the role that they're in. I don't, his real life doesn't affect me personally at all. What he does on screen does.
Which is fine. I mean, I thought he was probably the best part of that movie, but I don't know. Like, I don't mind the Expendables films, but the third one I just felt was the least interesting out of all of them. I liked how, like, Wesley Snipes was a good addition, but the new cast they brought in of, the new recruits were all awful, including Ken Lutz, who should stop acting.
Well, Wesley Snipes, he was channeling that same power that he had back in the day when he fueled the Marvel franchise to be what it is today. So,
yeah.
Sorry, he's a little insane.
He's a little crazy.
So those are our top lists for the year for now. Steve, where are we heading next?
Mike, I'm sorry, was that your shit list or your top list?
That was my top list. Now shut up.
Was there a difference?
Shut the hell up. Steve, where are we going next?
Canada.
No.
It's always fun to throw that in there, though. We're going to our favorite moments of the year.
I got one.
Okay.
I just have one. I mean, besides on the personal moments.
Yeah,
but we're doing geek moments here.
Yeah.
So my favorite moment would be anything and everything, even if it is an overkill, involving the next Star Wars movie. I'm sorry, I can't not be on the crazed hype fanboy bandwagon for that one. And if I have to pick a moment, I'll go with the Star Wars trailer being released, regardless of the mixed reactions to it. It just gets me excited that we may get a new Star Wars film that possibly is not the same as The Phantom Menace, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite moment of the year, is being a fanboy with Star Wars, I guess.
Dan?
Well, one that comes to mind is the fact that seeing podcasting actually entering into the mainstream with the success of the Serial podcast that kind of swept over the nation, so much so that my wife is the one that introduced me to the podcast. For those that don't know, it's kind of a spinoff of This American Life. Covers this murder case that actually happened near my neck of the woods in Baltimore, and kind of goes over it and looks at all the facts to seeing if they feel like the person who did it actually was guilty. It happened in 1999 of these two high school kids, and the wife, a boyfriend and girlfriend, and supposedly the boyfriend killed the girlfriend, and it goes through this entire process. It's like a 12-episode series, and it became huge, so much so that SNL did a skit of it, which is kind of crazy, thinking that podcasting is being parodied on Saturday Night Live. So it was kind of cool seeing that success. I don't know what that means for podcasting in general, but I mean, I think it's a good podcast. I don't know if it's like the best podcast I've ever listened to. It kind of reminds me of some really good true crime documentaries. But that was kind of cool to see, just seeing that kind of hearing people understand what a podcast is because of that success. So
I want to piggyback off of that a little bit too. Not exactly the same, but obviously I did hear about that, and I think it is kind of cool to see how podcast is spreading now in general as just a medium. And probably one of the other favorite moments of my year would be myself getting into the listening side of podcasts. Now, I mean, we've been doing this now for 5 years or so. I've been recording podcasts, been listening to those back, but I hadn't really branched out too much until this year. And I found myself getting in a routine of basically just putting in the Bluetooth, starting my Podcast Addict app up, and just listening to an episode on my way to work, and then usually for about the first hour while I'm at work, nobody else is there, and nothing's really happening besides what I'm doing on my own. So I've been getting into the habit of listening to stuff. I've listened to pretty much all of the Talking in Circles episodes from
Very
this
nice.
year. I've listened to almost, I wouldn't say all of them, but probably 75% of the In Session Film podcast. Just started listening to True Bromance. I listened to a bunch of, for some random reason, Stone Cold Steve Austin has a podcast. I don't know. I don't know how I got on that, but it was cool listening to him interview a bunch of people from back when I was actually into wrestling 20 years ago.
Did you hear the Vince McMahon interview?
No, I didn't hear that. I just heard Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and some of those episodes. Listened to a few Jim Ross podcasts as well. So it's also cool to see. Oh, and obviously the first podcast that I ever listened to outside of GeekCast Radio Network would probably be Talking Tunes with Rob Paulson. I haven't liked what he's been doing as much recently with all the live stuff as much as I liked the interviews that he originally did. But I have listened to a bunch of those as well. So it's just kind of getting into the idea of listening to all these other podcasts and hearing what people are doing and kind of getting ideas from them and, commenting on their stuff. So interacting with them a little bit. It's fun being on that side as well. And kind of the way I was piggybacking off of what Dan was saying, it's not just some of these podcasting shows getting more attention, but also a lot more famous people doing podcasts. I mean, before, shows and broadcasters and sports stuff would do it, but with the Kevin Smith and, like I said, stuff like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Rob Paulson, there's a lot of celebrities and famous people out there doing it, which is bringing attention to it. Which is cool, I think, for the most part. You have to listen to a lot more ads in some of those than obviously stuff like we do. That's why I like listening to Talking in Circles and In Session Film and stuff like that, because you don't have to go through ads every 5 minutes. But I do enjoy listening to podcasts. So that's one of my favorite moments, is getting on there and kind of expanding my library and knowledge of what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve?
I would say some of my favorite moments. I used to listen to podcasts before I got promoted. And now that I got promoted, I don't have time to actually have my headphones on. So a lot of time when I have downtime in my office, I've gotten into more video podcasts this year, which is slightly different than what I'm normally used to, which is I used to listen to like a lot of the This Week in Tech, or I used to listen to Rob Paulson's thing, which don't get me wrong, I love the guy, I like his stuff, but since he went to the live format, it's made it kind of difficult to hear on occasion because it's a lot grainier. It's not like they're actually plugged into microphones. It's recorded off something else. It just sounds bad, so it's hard to hear.
It's okay when you're actually watching the stuff on this Ustream channel, but when you're listening to it, yeah.
Which is strange to me that they can't work something out to where they can get the raw audio and put it up. But again, I don't know. It just bothers me. So I've listened to, like, I've watched a lot of like the Nerdist News. I've watched like Screen Junkies, their movie fights, or their honest trailers, which I find a lot of their honest trailers to be oddly spot on. On more than one occasion. I've ruined a couple films for my wife by showing her some of those. Little Mermaid. So there's that. I've also been watching The Warp Zone, which I mentioned earlier. So there's some stuff there. And then a lot of the other moments are like a lot of the trailers that have come out, like the Star Wars trailer and like the Avengers trailer that quickly got forgotten as soon as Star Wars came out. So I mean, there's been a lot of kind of geeky events and things that have kind of piqued my interest differently this year that I didn't expect.
For me, it probably has to be a tie between the Avengers trailer more, but it's a tie between the Avengers trailer and the Minions movie trailer, because just those little guys are just hilarious, and them getting their own movie is going to be awesome. Other things, we've already mentioned the Star Wars trailer. Yeah, I mean, podcasting, like Kevin Dan were saying, I mean, it's growing exponentially now. I mean, and it's not just random people just starting up and learning. It's, actual people you look at Chris Hardwick and Nerdist. I mean, that guy's been doing his podcast, his network for, a couple, I don't even know how long he's been doing it, but he's been doing it for a while at this point. And, the interviews that he gets is really cool a lot of the times. All right. Do we have any epic fails of the year?
Well, one thing I did wanted to mention real quick, just regarding like epic moments, like positive side, is some of the cool like science aspect things that happened this year, like landing on a comet, which is pretty awesome. Landing on the comet for the first time, and also finding the Curiosity rover finding water and bacteria on Mars, and the fact that we've begun the process of traveling to Mars this year, which is kind of cool. So, we like space travel kind of was hitting a snide there, so it was kind of cool seeing some huge advancements in the past year. So before we get all to the bad stuff.
Agreed.
So the epic fails. What do we have for epic fails of the year?
Michael Bay films.
Don't worry. Now the rumors are that he's going to do something with the Thundercats.
And he's going to destroy that too. Did you like the giant explosion on my Facebook page that happened because Mike posted that there?
Yeah.
And then Optimus is like sitting here defending everything, and everybody else is like, to hell with you.
He's defending he's not defending, he's going against the 2011 series. Ryan Drost from Star Joe's was defending the 2011 series, and Paul was basically saying, no, you're wrong, it was crap.
What was?
The 2011 Thundercats series.
But getting back to 2014, I would say I could get on a whole soapbox here, but I think a lot of things, as far as in the world of comedy, not that it's maybe not the typical epic fail, because it's not anybody necessarily doing something stupid or whatever, but just in general, most of the mainstream comedies that came out were pretty bad, and then we obviously lost a lot of comedic icons, like we already talked about with Robin Williams, even Joan Rivers as far as her earlier days, and a lot of things along that line. So not a good year, I think, for comedy in general. But that's kind of a more personal soapbox. But I think everything involving the interview is a pretty much epic fail for this year.
Yes.
Except for the fact that it might open up some doors as far as releasing movies in a more streaming YouTube, Xbox on-demand type way. But I don't know if I'm necessarily for that, because I like going to the theater. So
yeah, it made $15 million on like through rentals, which is kind of crazy. But
it's
also
probably going to be some type of record that will withstand the test of time, just because of all of the nonsense that was surrounding it.
Oh yeah, the kicker is the fact that it's not that great of a movie. But also kind of epic fails was like all the issues that happened with the NFL this year with like domestic abuse and how it handled like the whole Ray Rice situation and Adrian Peterson, which was like, how can we mess things up even further? So that was kind of, if anyone had a bigger epic fail this year, it would be the NFL with that. So.
That's for sure.
I think it's not necessarily an epic fail, but I think this year when WWE launched the WWE Network, they lost out on a whole crap ton of money. Because how it works is, for those that don't know, $9.99 a month gets you pretty much all of their content, including all 12 pay-per-views per year. So instead of them charging $50, $60, $70 per pay-per-view on cable or DirecTV or whatever you use, you can get it for $10 a month, and you get them all.
Yeah, but I think a lot more people are probably doing that compared to shelling out the big amount of money and the library that it gives you access to. I haven't done it, but I know a lot more people that are doing that because of the price point.
Oh, right, but I'm saying like WWE really did kick themselves in the ass with losing on all that money, that they were getting at the time. I'm sure that they've got losses this year because of this new network. You're right, it's great. I've taken advantage of the free trials. The content is amazing for the price, but I just think they've kicked themselves in the foot with the whole thing. Other epic fails, the Sony hack. Talking about pretty much any hack this year, but the Sony hack really kind of was an epic fail. It's like you'd think that they'd have better passwords on this stuff.
It was an inside job.
Probably. Any for you, Steve?
Besides the Michael Bays, I would say the death of Pirate Bay, which surprisingly has some weird kind of a flag thing going and some weird hashed out like 50-digit code at the bottom of their site now for whatever reason. The constant bad sequels and reboots, which again covers Michael Bay. Yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. I think we're going to head to a quick break. You're going to hear from several of our syndicated partners here on the network and their highs and lows for 2014. And after that, we're going to come back and give you a preview of 2015 for the GeekCast Radio Network. We'll be back after this.
Hello, nerds. This is Jesse from Rock Sugar, and you're listening to the GeekCast Radio Network. Keep it right here.
Hey guys, Hunnick Outcast here, and I know that you have posted an email. I'm sorry if this is a couple days late, but pretty much, talking about 2014 and, what did I love and how it went, gone for me, whatever the case may be, in regards to my podcast. Well, it was a very interesting year, to say the least. I mean, Season 1 of Hunnick Outcast podcast started, I think, December 2013, and then creeped into January, and it was on very, very short legs. I didn't even know if I was going to do it. I couldn't find a co-host. I knew I just couldn't talk about one thing, because originally I was just going to talk about Godzilla movies, and there's only so many Godzilla and Kaiju movies that I could watch and stand without boring myself. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was just like grabbing at topics and so on and so forth. And I know in the middle of 2014, I saw that, the show was nominated for a GeekCast Radio Network Award, and pretty much got my ass kicked, and then some. Which was understandable. I think I only had, God knows how many episodes out, and, they were pretty crappy to begin with, including the pilot. But I think sometime between April and May, when Godzilla 14 was coming out, and I put out a evite on Facebook, and I was going to discuss it. Thank God, Dane Lamont from Dane and Jake Get Classy, he had joined me. Oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about comparisons of Joker and Doink the Clown from the World Wrestling Federation. And Dane noticed that I was going to be, discussing Godzilla 14, and he introduced me to this guy, which is now my co-host, Wyatt Jones. and we've been co-hosting Hunagaocast ever since, and I changed the name. I know on GeekCast it's Hunagaocast Podcast, and I've been trying to change the name on iTunes, and don't even get me started. But it's technically now just called Hunagaocast. But it's another chestnut. A lot of changes I'm trying to make for the show. But we'll get there when we get there. In the meantime, what do I think of the show so far? What did I love or not love? Well, first of all, I found that podcasting to me can be very therapeutic. I mean, listening to podcasts is one thing. Wanting to discuss what I love and, put my 2 cents in on a topic, I enjoy doing it. So I'm glad I created the podcast. I've enjoyed, guesting on the main feed, of course, on some of the GeekCast Radio Network episodes, M-Wire, and definitely the Pull Bag, which, I seem to be asked to be more in the Pull Bag more than anything, which is what I love. And if I ever get to, come back in 2015, because Mike and I have been talking about a lot of the Image comics, there's one I'm definitely going to be pushing for, which is Proof. It's, kind of like Hellboy and the X-Files done Image comic style, and it's awesome. But what do I really love? Well, I changed RSS feeds. I changed different servers. I guess for the best or the worst. And well, the good news is I seem, since I changed it a few months ago, well, the downloads aren't that great. They're only, total it's only in the triple digits, but the plays seem to be in the quadruple. I wish there was a little more, but I can understand. I mean, I don't know how else I could really push the show. I've, put the show on YouTube. I put it on TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, Facebook. I get people that at least, talk to me on Facebook and have requests. I'm glad that I get Dane Lamont every now and then and Jacob Williams that, they come on every, now and then. They'll guest on the show. I'm glad I still have Wyatt working with me. I also have Rachel, Facebook friend of mine that, does The Simpsons with me. Only regrets that I have, unfortunately, is that between 2010 and present, my computer has been hit with viruses and then some, because I got a PC, and even though I keep, changing my password every now and then and getting different software, about the 4th time I think my computer has been under attack or hacked, and unfortunately, it's annoying. So, because of all, that, it's been hacked and viruses. There's been several episodes that sadly of Hunagaocast that have been lost forever unless somebody's downloaded them, and a couple of them were pretty good episodes. One of my favorites, it's one of my most memorable, is that Dane, Wyatt, and myself, we were comparing Godzilla 58 to Godzilla 98, and I was just drunk because I really did not want to discuss Godzilla 98 sober, and I didn't know we were going to be doing them, both at the same time. So it's one of my, it's not one of our better podcasts, but it's probably the more interesting one. Unfortunately, I can say there's one that's lost forever because of a virus, and that's our Godzilla 14 podcast. But that would mean I would have to review that movie again, and I don't know if I want to. But, that's Season 1 for you. I mean, Season 1, there were a lot of technical errors, there was a lot of sound errors, those are the breaks. What I did love was my Robin Williams tribute that I did, because I think what I really enjoyed was I just put out an Evite, and I probably got close to, at the end, 4,500 to 5,000 people that wanted to be a part of it. Some joined me on Skype, and I had to edit it and then some. Some people just, on Facebook just left messages. And while Wyatt and myself and a few other people were on the Skype chat with us, people kept trying to interrupt to be part of the Skype chat. So that was, the Robin Williams tribute was my favorite, I think, out of all the Hunagaocasts that I did. But moving on to 2015 for Season 2, well, I got better audio equipment, which is good. And I have a much better idea how I'm going to tackle Season 2, including the season premiere, because after watching the interview and figuring out, that's not the best way to do a political satire comedy or whatever the fuck the interview was all about. For the Season 2 premiere, White and myself, we're going to be discussing The Great Dictator. And over the next few weeks and months, we're going to be discussing other political satire movies that were much better than the interview. Charlie Chaplin and The Great Dictator is awesome. Then, of course, we have the Marx Brothers and Duck Soup. We got Peter Sellers and The Mouse That Roared. We've got Woody Allen's Bananas and Love and Death, even though, I know the difference between a dictatorship and a, emperor, or a monarchy, or whatever the case may be. But it's still supposed to be satirizing, political international affairs. So, and then of course for for our special themed episodes for Valentine's Day, Harley Quinn, April Fool's Day, we've got Joker special, and we've got some great stuff cooking up for the summer. And for the Season 2 finale next year, since we've discussed Godzilla, we've discussed King Kong versus Godzilla, we're going to be discussing King Kong 2005, because it'll be the 10th anniversary of Peter Jackson's King Kong. But, we'll also be discussing all the other King Kong movies as well, including, King Kong Lives, and a lot more. And I've been debating, but I'm going to put it out there, because I think I only have like a minute left. I was only allowed to do like 5 to 10 minutes, really quick. This is for the listeners out there. If you give us any type of feedback on iTunes on Hunnick Outcasts, on May the 4th, 2015, you're going to get a very special Star Wars retro, where we're going to be discussing all 6 Star Wars movies leading up to Episode 7 in December. If you do not leave us any feedback, we're going to be discussing all 6 Star Wars movies in December. We're still going to be talking about Episode 7, but if you don't leave us any feedback, I will be reviewing the holiday special. But if you do leave us some feedback before, May the 4th, in its place, we will be reviewing Spaceballs. So, I'm just putting it out there. So, either Spaceballs on May the 4th or the holiday special in December. So,
Sean, I gotta tell you, this has been a pretty dull New Year's Eve party. I mean, you had no music, a box of Chex Mix, and actually it's not even Chex Mix, it's rice Chex. You didn't even mix anything in it.
Well, it was gonna be puppy chow, but you're too lazy to go open the peanut butter and the powdered sugar. So I blame you. It was a build it yourself Rice Krispie rice. We don't have Rice Krispies.
When I saw that,
to tell you,
I thought it was for peanut butter and powdered sugar sandwiches, but then you don't even have any bread. I mean, look at Kate. She looks bored out of her mind right now.
I thought you were going to say pretty, and I got excited. But yeah,
she looks pretty bored, maybe.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Good save.
Well,
guys, I brought Jenga.
Jenga.
Why are you saying it like that?
Because that's how they said it in the commercials.
Oh, okay. But I only have like 4 blocks left.
Is it?
I've had it for a while.
Is it wrong that I thought you were referring to Jumanji?
Did you?
I did.
I do not do Jumanji.
Yeah.
Jumanji's scary.
Yeah.
Just exactly like the fact that this year's over already.
That's what's really scary here, is that 2014 is over. And what's scary / intimidating is because we had such a great 2014. Am I right?
Yeah.
It was good.
Lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of somebody turned 30 this year.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles turned 30 in the year 2014.
Can I just get something straight before we start?
What?
Should I change out of my formal dress? Because I'm a little pissed. You guys told me that this was like a formal event. So
I have my tuxedo t-shirt on.
I brought a bottle opener, and all he has is cans of Shasta. What am I supposed to do with this?
Can I just go change?
Yeah, you can change.
You change your freaking attitude while you're at it.
Heard that.
I know.
All right, well, Kate's changing, Sean. Let me ask you, What has been some of your best moments of Smeared Ink's first year?
Oh, man. This is like
Kate, close the door.
All right.
I mean, we like you, but that's just weird.
You're like our sister. We don't want to see your bits.
We're not from Alabama. Shout out Alabama. We don't have
Speaking of maybe,
do
they have electricity in Alabama?
Yes, they have electricity in Alabama.
Kibbles and bits, knock it off. Here's the deal.
Keep flopping around in there.
Here's the deal. Speaking of Alabama and stuff, one of the craziest things I think to come out of our podcast of 2014 is we went international and didn't even know it.
What didn't we know? I'm sorry, I just got back from putting my...
That's a sweet-looking swimsuit.
Yeah, it's less formal than my prom dress from 2004.
But too casual for the party.
All right, I'll change again.
All right.
You didn't tell her about the hot tub?
Oh.
By hot tub, I have a...
You tried to throw a toaster in a bathtub and see if that would work?
Well, you know, toasters give off heat.
That's no... Kate, don't go near the bathtub.
All right, I put my Halloween costume on. We're good.
All right, Kate.
She's one of those giant M&Ms!
Yeah.
Comfy. Now I can eat all I want.
And you got a big peanut inside you.
What? Oh.
Special news coming 2015.
So anyway,
Don't start that shit.
Sean was telling us about how wonderful it was that we went international.
Yes, that was super cool.
Yeah. One of the things that was pretty awesome to me was the fact that we got picked up by GeekCast Radio.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way we could have gone international.
Yeah.
International love. Whoa.
Absolutely.
There's no one... No, is that a song?
Is that international love? Is that
is a Zumba song.
Oh.
So it might not be a real song.
Kate, our listeners are one of two categories. They're geeks, like me,
love it.
or they're theater, actor, improviser people like all of us.
Love it.
None of them are Zumba people.
If you are a Zumba person, tweet me at @SPatrickConroy.
How did I get involved in
Because I don't
this?
have a Twitter still.
Also coming soon for 2015.
Someone out there does Zumba. I don't care. Someone has to. It's a blast.
Does your mom have a Twitter? Is that what you're trying to tell
My mom
us?
does not have a Twitter.
Well,
My mom, God bless you. I still have to look things up for her online.
Well, yeah. Shout
Hey,
out Kate's mom.
go online and look this up.
Go
I
to
have
the
tell you,
Lycos.
there's a computer in your house. Kate, just go look it up.
You know, another fun one that I thought of was we this year podcasted from a moving truck.
That was pretty amazing. That was the lost episode that, we're still working on getting online to you folks. But the fact that we podcasted while moving Kate and her lovely fiance, shout out Eric, who would be his first appearance on the show.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
I did like that. That was cool.
Fun. One of my favorite moments had to be Without a Doubt, and one of the most beloved episodes would actually be the Kate Talks Dirty episode.
That is a fan favorite as well.
Yeah. Just the fact that Kate loves dirty jokes and doesn't know the punchline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kate,
I think I do one.
Kate, I taught you a joke today, a Christmas joke. I know it's a little late because it's after Christmas, but Kate, why does Santa carry a large sack?
Because he has to give presents to all the boys and girls of the world.
Okay, because we have a lot of listeners right here, I'm not going to give the right answer, but you all have Google.
Y'all have Google. Y'all in Alabama have Google.
It's because the children get presents. Right?
Yes, because he has to bring to children.
I don't know why we're giggling. Are we giggling because it's true?
Yes, because
Okay.
the truth makes you smile.
It does.
I think we should also look back on all the fabulous guest stars that we've had.
Yeah.
Everyone from Sexy Kate to Brian Reese to
Joanna.
Director Randall Lobb from Turtle Power, the definitive history of the Teenage
We
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
had shout out people who were at beginning of
many shout outs.
Yes.
Many of our friends and family have been shouted out.
Yes. My mom said shout out Josh and Sean too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Shout out Kate's mom.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what a podcast is.
You know, that's one of my goals for 2015 is to have your mom become a regular listener of Smeared Ink.
She'd be a great host, or not a host, but she actually probably be a better host.
Is she submitting her resume
Yeah,
through
she
you?
can take over for me. She'd be great.
Well, we'll consider it.
Okay.
We are open to many things for 2015.
Yeah.
What's your big goal for 2015 in regards to the show, Sean? The show, Sean.
Sean
Show. Not the Sean Show.
I have a few. One, get Kate on Twitter.
Yes.
I think that'll be fun. 2, get Smeared Ink on YouTube with sketches and other maybe behind-the-scenes features that our fans can see and listen to.
Besides the one Lord of the Rings video we've had since last year.
Is it on there?
It's on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're on there.
YouTube.com/TheRealJoshPlayer.
Yeah, but we
Sorry,
got.
that didn't roll off my tongue.
I think you dropped your own name. Can you do that?
I did. And it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely take care of that business for 2015. That is what I am.
I want a Twitter. That's my only goal.
We'll do it tonight then.
But I don't want it Katie Anderson.
We'll figure something out.
Kate, what's one of your big goals?
I want to get Twitter.
Okay.
I want my mom on here.
You want your mom on the show?
Yeah.
While you have a Twitter? Okay.
Not when I have a Twitter, but I want her...
Honestly, my big goal is to always build our listenership.
Yeah.
To do some Smeared Ink live shows. That's my big ultimate dream. It's the 3 of us and people paying for it.
For us to talk, not to stop talking? Because I could probably get the other one around very soon.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Can I just have money?
Just give me money.
Yes, we would all like money. Mm-hmm. And that's what New Year's is all about.
About money?
And pretending that we're going to go to the gym this year.
Hey,
speak for yourself, y'all.
Yeah. Shout out Eric. He went today. Good for him.
I went today. He didn't go... Oh, yeah, he didn't go today.
You feel the love in the room.
And that's what brings the cast of Smeared Ink together. So, I do want to say a big congratulations to GeekCast Radio on their 5th year anniversary. Yay. The Fiver, the Big 5.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Mike Blanchard, the mastermind behind all of this.
They'll be getting their training wheels off soon, right? Probably.
Yeah.
If they're getting their training wheels off, that mean we're still in diapers?
We're eating squash, guys.
Yeah, we're pooing and cooing and
we're cooing.
I know words. I took psychology.
For Smeared Ink, my name is Josh Blair.
As always, Sean Conroy.
I'm Kate.
Happy New Year's
and happy 5th anniversary, GeekCast Radio.
Trying to remember. What are we doing next? Are we doing the fan fiction or are we doing the GCRN thing?
Well, which do you want to do?
We might as well do GCRN.
All right, let's knock that out of the way. So,
okay,
maybe this will be in the show, maybe it won't be. I'll leave it up to Dane.
All right. It'll depend on how much of a train wreck it is.
Right. So, he said to do no more than 10 minutes, so I'm going to start the timer.
Thank you.
Now.
Okay.
All right, so we're supposed to talk about the best and worst of Punisher in the year 2014.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'm sure we'll talk up our show and why the GCRN people should listen to. We'll do that at the end there.
Yeah.
So let's do the worst, because it's always fun talking about the worst. I think
absolutely
the worst of 2014 by far was Acker Blacker on Thunderbolts.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think they get pushed to the front because not only are they the most recent ones, but on the same side of that coin, they end capped that shit. It's almost like the grand finale to the greatest shit show on earth. It's, I almost feel bad because it's almost like being promoted to the Nazi army in 1945. Like, it ain't gonna go great for you, but like, you still manage to make people hate you even more. Like, that's, you know what? No, Acker and Blacker are not Nazis. I want to take that back. But that was a horrible analogy. But boy,
I think what you meant to say, it's like being promoted to captain on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg.
Oh, perfect. Exactly. It's just, congrats, dude. Grab the cold shrimp before it forever sinks to the depths.
Right.
But
and then what they did, instead of showing, great leadership and trying to do something, while this ship was going down. They're like, hey, I got an idea. Let's just back out and then ram it back in to the iceberg. Yeah.
In and out. The old rhythm method. But Thunderbolts is a fascinating evolution of a comic, because when it was just Daniel Way and Dylan, it was just boring. And it's just like, God, this is meandering and pointless. And then I think they listened to the fans on that, and they were like, let's make this just really get out there, really aggressive and fucked up. And it's, it literally looks like, most of those stories look like things my students would turn into me, that they either copied from some Chinese site of essays, or they literally just churned out on 4 hours of caffeine-addled minds. Let's see here. Let's have some of the worst art ever. Something that, what if the Max artist stopped trying when Frank decided, hey, let's go kill all the mobsters. Fucking mobsters in New York. And we'll keep them in one warehouse, and we'll have a Doom free-for-all match. It's going to be fun.
Wait, do you mean, oh God, I can't even think of his name. You're talking about the Image Max series, right? With, Keith something, or Sam Keith.
And I'm not dissing Sam Keith's artwork. I'm saying
because he's actually badass. This was like someone who thought they could use Photoshop and copy his style.
Yeah, and I think that was still Charles Soule's run. Charles Soule doesn't get on the list, because even though he did some bad shit, there were inklings of things getting good in his series. And I don't know if maybe he was allowed to keep going, he'd find his footing. But that whole series.
No, I think the reason why Acker Blacker takes the cake, and I don't think this happened in 2014, this was 2013, they did that Thunderbolts annual. Yeah. It was actually really decent, where they took on Doctor Strange. And it was a lot of fun, and I think we thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, they introduced another S.H.I.E.L.D. agency called Wand. It was dealing with magical bullshit, and I go, hey, I'd actually like this to, maybe they could turn this into something. I don't mind you shoving in your own concepts if it works. But then they got put on the series, and we're like, yeah, this might actually be good. And they're like, no, let's make as many mistakes and omissions and just aggressively fuck up every character's credibility. Let's make, even the Punisher versus the Thunderbolts, people love it. Punisher's like Marvel's Batman. But then no one comes out of that good. Frank looks like an asshole. Red Hulk looks like an asshole. The only guy that probably did decent in Thunderbolts was Venom.
Venom came out okay.
Venom came out okay. Ghost Rider gets fucking jobbed every chance he gets. It's just, oh man. Bad shit for any fan. I've never seen a team book aggressively hate the fans of those characters like Thunderbolts. You see this guy you like? Yeah, he's in here. Fuck your guy.
Yeah, let's just remind you of how terrible those Ghost Rider movies were.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, let's make references to them. Let's make references to Shawarma. Let's make references to Nicolas Cage. Man, I'm surprised they didn't fit an Elektra movie reference in there, honestly.
Yeah. So let's switch gears and talk about the best of 2014.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to target very specifically and say the Punisher Crossbones matchup in Nathan Edmondson's Punisher.
Oh, that's a good pick, actually. That's just solid. That was solid storytelling, and it really felt like a Steve Grant or Mike Barron story of the past, where Frank has just had, for 2 issues, goes to someplace outside of New York City and just has an adventure.
Yeah, and it's a miracle these days to tell that compact of a story in 2 issues and have it fire on all 8 cylinders.
Yeah, it's almost unheard of in today's market and today's expected, right for the trade formats. That made me really start believing in Edmondson, even though and it's funny because the guy has shown he can write for the long term. He can write these quick 1 and done or 2 and done stories. He knows how to balance characters very well. And every character there got its due. Like Crossbones was a character that you could respect as another operator that could go up against Frank and not seem like an idiot for doing so. That's the problem with having Gangster number 237 go up against Frank sometimes. And they even brought in special forces, and they definitely seemed they did their homework on it without being pretentious. Though there were times, I think you and I both said, where like they kind of shoved in vocabulary.
They were going straight to the glossary of the Army Field Manual and just writing stuff in there.
Yeah, like, look, someone has a subscription to Soldier of Fortune. Wow. But it was really fun. I guess my pick would just be Punisher number 12. I really feel I've never read a comic that made me go, I want to learn Photoshop better so I can make a GIF for the banner just to get excited for the hype train. It's kind of funny because it is Frank. Frank doesn't do a lot of killing or destruction, but it's the lead up and the promise of really big things and some payoff as well to what's going on with the Mexican cartels, what's going on with Frank's family or his remaining family. It just seemed like a really good, almost fan servicey issue because of all the prep work that was being done, all the characters getting their due. And it's kind of funny because even though that's clearly not a conclusion or any type of end, it's the promise of it that makes it really good. And with stories like you've talked about with Nathan Edmondson, it makes me really hopeful for future Punisher stories in 2015.
We got 2 minutes up, but so 2 brief questions for you.
Sure.
Do you think Edmondson's getting a hard time because other than Jason Aaron, no other writer has been able to measure up to Garth Ennis? And we're not far enough removed from that era?
It's kind of funny because, every writer, it's difficult because every writer that's done the Punisher after Garth Ennis has to be like, well, here's my interpretation of it. Or during Ennis, when they started doing, the
War Journal.
War Journal and all that
stuff. The Mad
stuff.
Fraction and all that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, those guys often never had a chance to really get people because they not only had to not be Ennis, they had to really force Frank into the 616. I think Edmondson got a better break on it because now they're able to ease off and okay, let's just let Frank do his own thing. You can bring in the Marvel Universe when you feel like it. Like there's less pressure on them now.
Sure.
But yeah, I do think some people, but another good thing about the Punisher community is that, or fan community in general, they're happy just to have someone that gives a shit.
That's true.
As long as it feels like you're being heard. And by the way, I talked to Nathan.
We got 30 seconds.
All right. Nathan Edmondson and Mitch Gerrits actually commented to us on Twitter. I talked to them and showed them the latest episode to thank them for the stories. And Nathan Edmondson favorited the tweet, and Mitch Gerrits says, "We have sultry voices." So obviously that man doesn't listen to the show, but I appreciate it all the same.
Sure. I'm going to go 30 seconds over here, but obviously the best thing to look forward to Punisher-wise in 2015 got to be the Garth Ennis return on Frank's first tour in Nam, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Punisher's not been canceled again is something to look forward to. In fact, the series is going to get split into 2 titles. So either way, the show will be able to continue on.
Sounds good. All right, so to all the GCRN people, thanks for tuning into us and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yes, I'm sure we'll be invading your other podcasts soon enough.
Now, I love s'mores as much as the next guy, but I'm fresh out of marshmallows. What do you say we call it a night?
Welcome to this really short edition of Mark Who 42's Whoniverse, a special edition for GeekCast Radio's 2014 Year in Review. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and with me as ever are
Patricia Helm,
Eduardo and Fryer,
Christian Basil.
Hey gang.
Is this considered a minisode then?
This is a minisode, and it's only on GeekCast Radio Year in Review for 2014. I'd like to thank TFG1Mike and Steve Megatron for making it possible. grateful for us to be part of the GeekCast Radio Network. Hello, everyone. We're a Doctor Who podcast, and, well, we're a Doctor Who radio show now that we're on Krypton Radio as well, and we've decided that we're going to spend our 10 minutes talking about what we liked and what we didn't like in 2014 in Doctor Who. So, first of all, the best thing about Doctor Who this year, I must say, is Peter Capaldi. What do you guys think?
Absolutely agree.
Agreed. Best thing was Capaldi coming in as the 12th Doctor.
Peter Capaldi has beaten David Tennant in my estimation of my favorite Doctor right now.
I wouldn't go that far.
I like Capaldi. No, I like Capaldi. I think he plays the Doctor well. Now, the worst thing about the season, well, not the worst, but Stephen Moffat, the writer, he's causing some problems. The writing has been a bit irregular on the show in the first half of the season. We didn't really like it that much, but we loved Peter Capaldi, and I really like him. Christian, what do you think?
I'm just glad Honey Boo Boo got canceled. I think that was the best thing that happened this year. Tell me I'm wrong, eh? Yeah, I think we can all agree that Peter Capaldi is the Doctor. He has taken over, he's grabbed the mantle and ran with it, and I think in some cases better than any of the previous Doctors has ever done. I like his take on the dark, kind of mean-spirited Doctor, but we still see signs of the good in him.
Yeah.
You know, keep out humans and all that stuff. But I can't wait until season 2. I can't wait for the Christmas episode.
Yeah, the Christmas episode, which will have already played while you're listening to this,
Right.
and I'm sure it was great. Now, I just got to say, I think Peter Capaldi is the classic Doctor in the new series of Doctor Who. Don't you think? He brings the classic character. He would fit well in the classic series.
I gotta agree with that one. I think Peter Capaldi, he's kind of a nice change of pace. While I have nothing against David Tennant and Matt Smith, it was a great idea in bringing in a new Doctor to have an older guy and someone a little less goofy. You know, he still has moments of goofiness, but it's interesting seeing a more serious Doctor take the controls of the TARDIS. And as far as worst, the writing's been a little erratic, and the other thing for me is Stephen Moffat is relying, I think, a little too much on trying to create a long-form, giant, interlinking story, because he's developed something I call the Bendis effect.
Oh, okay, and you're talking about Brian Michael Bendis.
Right, Brian Michael Bendis. Exactly. Where it starts off, you know, you have this great setup, it sounds really cool, and then when we get to the end, it just kind of fizzles out. It just kind of rushes out, and the ending just is kind of black. Which is not to say that the Master coming back as Missy wasn't really cool. It's just, there's so many things unanswered, so many things where it's just like, really? Okay, so we're just left with this? And you kind of feel, I don't know, like, I honestly think it's like just telling Stephen Moffat, dude, it's okay if this is just for this episode. You don't need to leave anything for later. It's okay. It's okay if the problem begins and ends in 45 minutes. It's alright.
Trish, what do you think the worst episode, in your opinion, this season was?
Oh gosh, Kill the Moon, maybe.
Kill the Moon. And we really, you know, and we really shouldn't say this because in the coming year we'll be having interviews with actors from Kill the Moon.
The acting was fine, but just the episode. You know, I agree with you. I think, you know, Peter Capaldi becoming the Doctor was the best thing of the season. But for me, one of the worst parts was how Stephen Moffat made Clara into this all-important person in the Doctor's life.
Right. Clara would have to be my worst companion at the moment.
I got a little irked. I was trying to think about when she first started to annoy me. And it actually goes all the way back to the 50th.
Uh-huh.
To the 50th.
She annoyed me from, I liked her in The Snowman. I liked her in Asylum of the Daleks. So it would have to be Bells of St. John. She started annoying me.
I didn't think she was that bad in that last half of season 7, but with the 50th, when they were getting ready to push the button, and he looks at her and she shakes her head, and he changes his entire mind based off of her. It was like, wait a minute, why is he just automatically doing what she said? From that point on, I was just like, why is all of a sudden everything she does so important? Why is she better than any other companion?
You're listening to GeekCast Radio's 2014 Year in Review. We're Mark Who 42's Whoniverse, and we're talking about the best and the worst of Doctor Who in the year 2014. Now, I just want to say before we continue that one of the best things I think in Doctor Who this year is our website. We have a new website, markwho42.net, and if you go to markwho42.net, you can download our previous episodes. You can find us on iTunes as well, but we also have news, short stories, different fun things on our site, so try us out.
Get out the
Are
glaze.
we allowed the shameless plug on this?
It was a shameless plug, so take a drink. Christian, what do you think was the worst part of Doctor Who in 2014?
Boy, where do I begin on this one? I think the worst part about it is the story arch, which we used to accept in previous series, which was a nice little adding to, and then sometimes garnishing. Bad Wolf, the silence, and all that. I think at that point, after the silence, and a little bit of River Song, where now in this series, it was like planted in our faces, like, look, it's a story arc.
Yeah, basically, if you miss an episode, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it was just in our faces now, whereas Bad Wolf was just hidden away, tucked away, and was a nice little thing.
The overall arc was like a little tiny thing, a little treat. It's a little Easter egg that you can go back and say, they mentioned Bad Wolf, but you're not expected to actively hunt for it.
But the way I'm looking at this is, and I'm afraid coining this term and see if you can follow with me, I call it conveyor belt writing now. Whereas we write these stories, we put them on a conveyor belt, and it has to line up on this conveyor belt so that the story arcs can fit in. And instead of the stories speaking for themselves and becoming good stories, we've got the items on the conveyor belt so that the story arch can flow right on through. Right. And it just seemed like, okay, and most people, through the blogs and on all the sites figured out the story arch episode 1. We figured it out, but it was because Moffat said, no, it wasn't the master, Missy's not the master, that we had to sit here and go, okay, well, we have to rethink the new theories that we came up with at the very beginning, which all kind of were not necessarily wrong. Patricia's the closest one. It was a renegade time lady who happened to be a Time Lord at first. So why didn't Stephen write for the entire series practically?
In British television, the creator used to write the entire series. Every episode was written by the same writer. And they never did that with Doctor Who. They had stories, but they were multi-part stories, so they were kind of the same.
I gotta put it this way, and I know Stephen has been getting a lot of ripping throughout the entire series, but as much as he's been getting ripped for why didn't you go this way, and then the plot holes are just enormous. Come on, let's just rein in some of these things that we would like to fill out. Where did the Pandorca come from? Why were the silence developed? All these things. Let's wrap it up into some nice stories that we can work on in Series 9. But as much as we want to rip on him, he is a fan of the show.
He is.
I don't think he means to be mean. I think he generally thinks these are great stories. I think we just got to rein it in. Let's have some good stories with this Doctor. Let's have stories that promote the character, what Capaldi's trying to generate, so that people can actually like him, as opposed to, okay, we're freaked out about this Doctor. And even Trish, you agree with me, when we were starting out, we didn't see this character come out until later on in the series, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was much later. The other Doctors, Matt Smith and David Tennant, they had their moment, like in the first episode.
Even as far back as the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, end of his first adventure, he nailed it with a line where he tells his companion, I'm the Doctor, whether you like it or not.
And apparently the audience didn't like it, so... Not at first.
That did backfire. But to be honest, the other thing that gets me is Moffat has come out and admitted he only goes from season to season, like focusing on season 8 or season 9, with on occasion having a little, like maybe one or two things that will bleed off. But if he's going to leave all this open stuff out, he may have to expand his thoughts beyond just going season to season. You can't just open up stuff that is supposed to be dealt with later if your entire thought process is, well, let me just focus on season 8 right now. Then maybe if you're going to open up something like, oh, where did Gus from Mummy on the Orient Express come from? Maybe you should be thinking, well, let's see how soon I can solve that. Or don't even make it a mystery and solve it by the end of the episode.
In conclusion, the best thing about Doctor Who in 2014 was Peter Capaldi. The worst thing in Doctor Who in 2014 was Clara, and the mid-ground was Stephen Moffat. That's all the time we have at our portion of the GeekCast Radio Network Year in Review 2014. For Mark Who 42's Whoniverse, I'm Mark Baumgarten.
I'm Eduardo M. Fryer.
Patricia Helm and Christian Basil, thank you for being on our show, too. And now, back to GeekCast Radio.
Starscream here, and I am the Lord and Master of the GeekCast Radio Network. Don't tell Megatron.
All right, we are back, and it is time to give you fine folks a preview of the GeekCast Radio Network in 2015. Steve, what do you got?
Ta-da! No, we have the GCRN Awards, which is coming up again right after this episode releases, which will encompass the more or less we're going to have. This is going to be a lot more fan-centric this year. There is a form where you will actually have to physically enter in your whatever your selection is of said TV shows or animation, video games, comics, or films, and it will compile this master list that no one will see, and we'll put them together, and out of the total selection from you, the listeners and fans of GeekCast Radio, we will collectively put together a top 5 where you'll get to vote on the overall top 5 selected by the masses, and each section will be about a month long, just to kind of give everybody enough ample notice to fill out everything. January will be the filling out of the initial form. February will be the voting on the top 5s for the categories, and the very, very beginning of March, we will do the actual podcast reveal episode and discussion. So that will round out that there. Anything you guys want to bring up as far as that?
Should be fun.
Yep, absolutely.
Should be interesting. We'll see how it goes. Figured we'd do it a little bit different this time, considering last time it was a spur-of-the-moment idea, and we selected all the selections.
Let's face it, in our almost 6-year history, usually the first big project we ever do usually gets lambasted all over the place, and then we come back the next time and do it better. So,
speaking of which...
Yes?
We're going to have another Top 100.
Yes, we are.
And it's going to be a favorite list. It's not going to be a top list, because this is all going to be in-house. Yeah. Should we actually reveal it here, or should we wait until the end of the awards?
I think we can reveal it here to, garner up. Since the tournament's going on.
What does the rest of the panel think?
That's fine.
Do it up.
Alrighty. This next Top 100 will be the Top 100 Favorite Video Games.
GeekCast Radio's favorite video games.
Yeah. We're covering other bases this time. We're not using the all-time. We're not using the, iconic. We're just, it's favorite. This is just basically a top 100 list from whomever is under the GCRN flag. So hopefully this will turn out well. Yes. I'm not quite sure. Most of us are almost done with our lists, or should be. So yeah, that'll be interesting to say the least. Comments and suggestions, feel free to post in this post below. I think those are pretty much the major events that we're going to do this year. Mm-hmm. To not really kind of chokehold ourselves on having to do anything extra. Mm-hmm. If we manage to get to another Wars tournament, but we will. But if not, it's not a big deal. We'll probably do a lot more Wars episodes, because hell, those are fun. And it's always fun to argue geeky topics.
Agree.
Yep. Kev, what do you got going on in 2015 for the network?
Well, right away in 2015, you can expect a bunch of movie-related things coming your way. Dan and I are collaborating on a bunch of different stuff. And then we also have a bigger collaboration with some of the other movie podcast friends that we have. But you can expect a look back at the 2014 most anticipated films list, a look back at our box office predictions, as well as some top lists. And then we'll obviously go and do the same thing as we predict what's going to happen in 2015 and tell you what we're most anticipating in 2015. After that, hopefully I'll be able to do some other type of movie-related content. Right now, my initial plan and my goal or my challenge for myself is to I know Dan sees way more movies than this, but I want to attempt to try to see 100 films in 2015. That is my goal. And I'm going to do something somewhat interesting. I have no idea how it's going to work out, and I haven't basically finalized all the rules. But I am going to see 100 films, and every time I see one, I'm going to do, whether it's a blog or a podcast, I'm going to do that. And I'm actually going to slot them in a place, 1 through 100, when I see it, and go through the year, filling up different slots in that 1 through 100 as we go.
How many of us can join in on that? Because that sounds interesting.
We're gonna see how that goes. Like I said, I haven't finalized the details, but I want to do something movie related. And since we don't necessarily have the Weekend at the Movies going full fledged, maybe this through blogs or just random podcasts on the feed will allow me to do that. Because what I do a good job of is seeing a bunch of movies and then never writing reviews on them. So I'm hoping to learn from Dan and actually get my thoughts out there. So that's from the movie related standpoint. The only review show I'll be participating in 2015 most likely will be the continuation of Mike and I's journey through the powers of Grayskull as we close out He-Man and, yes, I'm saying this right, venture into the land of She-Ra, which strangely and oddly I'm looking forward to. So that'll be the only review type of show I do. We'll see Telecast Season 2 start sometime later in the year. And then there might be something else coming down the pike, but I don't want to reveal much more about that until I actually get something finalized, and I don't want to make a bunch of promises I can't follow through with yet.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, you guys did 50 episodes in 2014, so what's coming up next for Talking in Circles?
Well, we're going to kind of revisit some of the past things that went well, some of our past games we had a lot of success with. We have a couple interviews scheduled, a few directors of some small films that are coming out that should be gearing up into the beginning of the year. But yeah, so kind of doing what we did last year, but trying some new ideas. But it just nothing's set in stone. We're kind of just seeing where the wind takes us, I guess.
Awesome. For the stuff that I do, I've got the pull bag going strong. Tooncast Beyond will be pretty much going all year, leading up to our first annual 25 Days of Christmas 2015. M-Wire will have some sort of special thing going on next year. I'm not going to reveal that just yet, but we'll have something interesting going on with that. The pull bag is going strong. We will have Marvelous March back again. We're going to focus on current Marvel titles this time around. The first annual Marvelous March, we did classic Marvel stories. We've also got Punisher Month from actually November of 2014 will actually be in April of 2015, I think. Remote Control the current 2000 and Now TV podcast will be making a return with its finishing finales and general discussion episodes will start this summer. Myself, Lady Rec, and Nicole Hailstorm will be doing our Gem review show. So the first time we've done an 80s property that isn't Transformers related. Well, obviously we have He-Man and Mask and all that other stuff, but so Showtime Synergy will be premiering in May and running through October of next year. And then GeekCast Radio, we're going to have, like we already announced, the top 100. There's going to be a bunch of other cool episodes come out for that as well. Obviously, I've got a bunch of interviews planned for next year, requests I'm going to send out for interviews for next year. I can say right now that the first interview, at least the first interview I do for 2015 will be Christy Marks. She, we're going to talk about the 30th anniversary of Gem, but also I just found out that she is writing one of the DC Convergence story titles. She's writing the Green Arrow book for the DC Comics Convergence event that's happening next year. So that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to mention for 2015, Steve?
I don't think so. I think it'll be an interesting year to kind of grow what we have instead of creating a bunch of new stuff. Again, always open to listener feedback, suggestions, comments, and whatnot. But should be fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this one. I guess you can close it out, Steve, since you wrote the closing.
Yes, I did. If you'd like to interact with the show, you can contact us in the following ways. You can call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. You can email us, feedback@geekcastradio.com. You can visit the episode post on the website. You can get hold of us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. My Twitter handle is @SCP21, and yours are?
TFG1Mike.
Mine's OptimusSolo.
At MovieRevolt.
Thank you for listening to GeekCast Radio's 2014 Year in Review show. We hope you received all the geeky information you can handle on 2014 and hope that you'll continue to support us here in 2015. With that, we have been Steve Megatron Phillips with
TFG1Mike,
OptimusSolo,
and MovieRevolt Dan.
Saying until next time, unleash the geek in you.
It's Showtime Synergy. The latest review podcast from the GeekCast Radio Network is here. So join TFG1Mike, Nicole Hailstorm, and myself, Lady Rec, as we will be reviewing all 65 episodes of Joe and the Holograms in a 25-episode-long podcast. You can find Showtime Synergy on iTunes and GeekCastRadio.com. We are the truly outrageous podcast that you want to be listening to.
You've just listened to GeekCast Radio on the GeekCast Radio Network. There are several ways to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show. First, visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on all of our different podcasts. Second, you can rate our show and leave us feedback in iTunes. Third, follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. Fourth, become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/GeekCastRadio. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for and your name. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.